Annette can do all the minutes from home tonight. Both of them. I'll do the prayer, and then Commissioner Scott will do the pledge. Oh, most gracious and heavenly Father, we come to you tonight, Father God, and just say thank you. Thank you for looking over our county and our people, Father God. Father, we just ask that our prayers will be with the people of Mayfield, Kentucky, and all over the region that was hit this weekend, Father God. Father God, again, thank you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Please salute your flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of agenda.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion second, discussion, changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved. Appearance of citizens. Do we have any citizens that would like to appear before this committee that does not have anything that's on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Presentation by Garrett Scoop, representative of National Salvage.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here today. I'm here
Just
today.
go ahead and tell your name and who your company, please.
Yeah. So I'm Garrett Shop. I work for National Salvage and Service, and we are the contractor that R.J. Corman has agreed to work with for the abandonment of the rail line that originates in Oneida, Tennessee, that runs down into your guys' county. Basically, it's a line that right now the AOK, or a railroad out west, and R.J. Corman are disputing because basically the AOK is wanting to purchase the line, and R.J. Corman is basically wanting to abandon it. Our role in it is R.J. Corman has selected us to handle the abandonment process, and basically what we do is we're a railroad contracting company. We handle about 8 million railroad ties a year for the Class 1 railroads, and about 100,000 tons of railroad steel. And then this year we are doing about a 40-mile abandonment up in New York State for the New York DOT, another 50-mile abandonment out in the Chesapeake Bay for the Canoni Atlantic Railroad. And then hopefully starting next year sometime, this line here. And basically one of the things that we're really passionate about as a company is basically taking old rail lines and turning them into rails to trails. What our idea would be for this line would basically to remove the rail, remove the ties, repair the crossings, clear it, and make it a walkable trail for the entire length of it. And from my understanding, there's also a 6-mile section that basically there's somewhere in this county, basically where the rail line ends at, that could basically another 6 miles could be added on to it. And our hope would be that we could also convince you all to let us basically include that in the rails to trails, so that there'd be a total of about 48 miles. The other party that is interested in the line is the AOK, or the Oklahoma Railroad. It's Arkansas-Oklahoma Railroad. And basically their stated purpose for the line is to put in basically a tourist railroad. And really what it kind of comes down to is basically these two parties have been arguing back and forth through the Surface Transportation Board. And the Surface Transportation Board basically, the way that the law is written is that R.J. Corman is required to sell to another railroad entity as long as that railroad entity is willing to pay the market price. So we, National Salvage, basically as the contractor that offered R.J. Corman the most money for the line, essentially set the market price. R.J. Corman offered it to the AOK at that price, and the AOK has declined to purchase it at that price. And now basically the AOK has been trying to find other ways to delay the process and make it more difficult. in my opinion, in the hopes that R.J. Corman will eventually just give up and say, okay, fine, you can have the line for the price that you're offering us for it. I don't see that happening, and at the same time, the AOK's, basically what they've stated is that their goal is to add a tourist line to bring, and that the benefit for the area would be that it'd bring tourism to the area. And my opinion is that basically Tennessee already has 10 of these 10 tourist lines, or 7 tourist lines, and basically every single major population area that is within about 5 hours of here has a tourist line that's close, or about 3 hours of here has a tourist line that is closer and more accessible to them. So I don't see a huge amount of traffic coming here. And at the same time, if the AOK saw a huge amount of basically tourists coming here for that, then they would have been willing to pay the price that we offered R.J. Corman for it. Our price is essentially just the scrap value of the metal on it, minus the cost of removing the ties and minus the cost of basically performing the work. So any sort of economic value that the line might have for anyone looking to run a business on it should obviously be more than what we're offering. But what the AOK has offered R.J. Corman is only a fraction of what we have. So So basically what we're hoping to do is abandon the line, help with the process of abandoning the line, and then converting it to a rails to trails, so that people both in this community and also in the basically everywhere around could travel here and hike the line. You guys have a absolutely beautiful countryside. I personally have spent quite a lot of time hiking in Tennessee, and I'd like to do more of it, and I'd like to eventually one day bring my kids down here to go hiking on this line, if at all possible.
Okay.
And don't know if you guys have any questions on that.
Sure do. Commissioner Yeager.
What is the base of the trail when you walk away?
So when we would leave, so it's up to the trail group that we basically partner with for the abandonment. But typically what we do is we leave all of the ballast, all the stone that's there, and it's usually anywhere between 1 foot and 18 inches of typically granite stone that has very good, basically is very good at having water run through it in a way so that it doesn't wash away. The two options on it, and it's really kind of up to the trail group that we work with, is we can either remove the ties, or we can basically take and set the ties on the two sides of the line, and so that the ties help basically keep the ballast there and also designate the path of where people are allowed to walk. It's kind of up to however it works out with the trail group.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Scott.
Are you tied into the project that the City of Oak Ridge is working on for Rails to Trails?
No, I'm not. I wasn't aware of it, but
Surprised.
I'd love to talk to them about it, because we've done a few thousand miles of abandonments on Rails to Trails, and we really like to support it.
Okay, you should contact the city manager in the City of Oak Ridge.
Okay.
How does this affect Anderson County? You mentioned it was in Oneida.
Well, so the line runs from Oneida and all the way down into the Anderson County. And currently, one of the things that is holding up the abandonment process is that the Anderson County has basically filed with the Surface Transportation Board, basically protesting the abandonment, because the line runs down into your county, and then there's a 6-mile line that was never built, but basically someone in the county has an option to build an additional 6-mile line off of it, so that business could be built on that line. And if the line was abandoned, and then it would make it more difficult for that 6 miles to ever have business on it. But basically the reason I'm here is because the Anderson County has basically filed with the Surface Transportation Board trying to stop the abandonment process.
When you say Anderson County, who in Anderson County?
I do believe it was the mayor, Miss Frank. which I may be wrong, but yeah. That was also, yeah, that was Ms. Frank.
Mayor Frank, do you have any comments? Thank you.
Am I correct on that? But, sorry.
What I filed was filed with your permission, so it was regarding a section that we believed had not been properly abandoned. And so the STB did put out, I really don't want to speak out of turn on this, so I can distribute what was filed. You could pull it up on the STB website, but it's been a while since I've looked at what the STB said. Basically, they put out a request for more information. Norfolk Southern confirmed what they had in their possession when it was transferred over. So what we're asking is if part of that line was improperly pulled up. The other thing is, and I have on my report, the EPA is doing an economic impact analysis on what that line would mean if it were a tourist line, and then also if it were a trail. So they're looking at both of those particular options and how that would benefit Anderson County. And then I do have a couple of questions since he is speaking about this transaction. One, what is the price? Since we're talking about a negotiated price, I was never able to have access to that information myself. I was told that was part of confidential negotiations. So tonight, Garrett is indicating that he and National Salvage offered that price. I'm curious what that price is so that we could fully understand the value. And then if National Salvage, I understand they've been contracted, but do they have the permission from the STB?
Okay.
Yeah, definitely valid question. So the first, basically the price that you're asking, I can't remember the exact dollar amount, but it was just slightly over $2.5 million that we offered RJ Corman. As of right now, we do not have the right to remove the line. Basically, the abandonment process has to be completed with the Surface Transportation Board before we would be allowed to remove it. And then as far as the value as a tourist line versus the value as a rails to trails, I am not a statistician, so I can't really tell you how many people are going to come here for it as a basically as a rails to trails. However, I can tell you that basically the AOK as a railroad company had the right to, basically at the price that we offered, they had the right to purchase the line from RJ Corman, and they declined to offer that amount. I'm not allowed to say exactly how much they offered, but it was a small fraction of what we offered for the line. And then beyond that, so I can't say, how much traffic is going to come here as a tourist line, but I can tell you that everything, look around the economy, everything else is booming. If this is a time when the AOK doesn't feel that they can pay basically the scrap price of the line, then I really wonder how much traffic are they actually expecting to be able to bring to the area, because really at say it's a $2 million difference hypothetically, that's, if they're borrowing money, that's $60,000 a year that they'd have to pay in interest. That's really not that many additional tourists that would have to come here in order to make the line basically the difference. It'd have to be basically the amount of people that it'd have to be bringing here would have to be so little that $60,000 would make a difference in them making money or not on the line. So I don't know how many people are going to come here either way. I can tell you that what we've seen in other areas of the country, rails to trails are very, very popular. They do have a lot of people will go to them, especially one that is of this length. 40 miles is a very nice length, and basically depending on the trail group that we partner with and basically the counties in the area, it can be either designated as a walking path or a walking and bikes or walking bike course, or the line that we just finished up in New York State, they were making it a snowmobile path to basically bring more snowmobile tourism to the area. The kind of direct translation here would be four-wheelers. And again, I can't speak to that because I don't know these counties that well, but it basically is that something that would be of value in this area? I don't know.
So my final questions to you is, what are you seeking from Anderson County, and what is your time frame?
So we would like to start removing the track as soon as possible. And what we're asking from the Anderson County is essentially to send another letter to the Surface Transportation Board saying that you don't have an issue with the abandonment and to allow the abandonment process to move forward.
Okay, and with that, I would suggest again that you contact the City of Oak Ridge manager, as well as the Anderson County Tourist Board, to perhaps get some numbers together.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I just see it as a presentation. Thank you.
You have the quote. Commissioner Wandell.
Thank you. Garrett, where is National Salvage out of?
We're located in Bloomington, Indiana, about an hour south of Indianapolis.
Mr. Chairman, we formed a railroad committee. What was it called? Maybe that's, what? A railroad authority?
Northeast Railroad Authority.
That's what I thought, Northeast Railroad Authority. So our body has formed this Northeast Railroad Authority.
Yes, sir.
I'd assume, Mr. Chairman, or the mayor, that's where the objection came from?
There's actually more members of that. I myself am a member of that committee, along with the mayor of Campbell County and the mayor of Scott County.
So trying to understand, obviously there's the business aspect of it, but I'm trying to understand what the Northeast Railroad Authority's position is. It sounds like, listen to the mayor talk, there's some concern whether, and I don't know, I'm just trying to read the tea leaves, I guess, but
Yeah.
there's some concern that some of the abandoned railroad was not done properly, perhaps. So,
So
go ahead.
from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but basically from my reading on the Surface Transportation Board, there is basically off of the 42-mile line, there is a area where basically there was an option to build a 6-mile extension, and that extension, it's never been built, but there's basically the option to build that extension. And if the 42 miles was to be removed, then it would make it that much more difficult for the 6 miles to ever be built and be cost effective.
Okay, so what you're looking for, and Commissioner Scott asked the question, you're looking for the county to send a letter to the Surface Transportation Board that we're okay with the abandonment of these 40 miles of line.
Correct. And I may be speaking to the wrong group here. I apologize.
No, that's the
if
right group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my goal here, and basically to assist us in basically moving forward and turning this into a rails to trails.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly don't want to take any action myself because I don't know enough about it. I appreciate Garrett bringing this to our attention, but obviously yourself and the mayor have been involved with this Northeast Railroad Authority, and you have a lot more information on it. So how often does the Northeast Railroad Authority meet?
We typically will meet every month, but lately we haven't because of the ongoing negotiations and litigation that's been ongoing.
I guess, Garrett, what I'm saying is I'm going to have to hear from the Northeast Railroad Authority before I can make a decision.
Yeah.
You know, they have all the players there, if you will, and I'd like to hear from all of them on what their take is and maybe they can give us a recommendation once they meet and tell us what their thoughts are.
That's understandable, and yeah, I'd love to speak to all of them as well, just to help, assist us in any way, and basically give whatever information I can.
Very informative, and I appreciate you coming. Thank you, Mr.
It
Chairman.
is. Now, once that you do that, who maintains that from?
So typically, it would be the Rails to Trails group, and the thing, most rails to trails really don't need much abandonment or much maintenance. What you worry about is you don't have the issue so much here, but if you go farther south, plants like kudzu growing across it and making it impassable. You also worry somewhat about washouts. Actually, one of the things that we would have to, if we decided to make this into a rails to trails, and if there was a group that wanted to support us in that, there is a fairly major washout that would have to be repaired. That's one of the things that we've kind of, that we've looked at on this. It's about 100 feet long, and that would have to be repaired. But then beyond that, for the most part, your rail lines require very little maintenance. The biggest thing is having a truck drive down it typically once a year and just spray for plants growing up through it. Like right now, if you were to try to walk down the line, it has trees growing up through it, but if you spray typically once a year, that's the vast majority of the maintenance that needs to be done. The other maintenance that may occur is, say for instance, if you decided that you wanted to make sure that it wasn't having motorized vehicles go down it, one of the things that we've done before is put up jersey barriers or like concrete blocks at each road crossing. We have seen instances before where people will go in with a machine and drag those out of the way so that they can go down the line. It's quite rare, but every once in a while then a truck, typically like just a truck with a boom on it or a mini excavator will have to go out there and basically pick up those blocks and move them back into the right place. But beyond that, it's not much maintenance.
Well, I'm sure that it'll be used by ATVs. Currently, I think we're number 2 in the nation, and soon to be, there's 2 more campgrounds that's planned, and there's several planned for the Devonia area that is all with ATV. And for the first time ever in Devonia, is there job opportunities that we haven't had in years. So it definitely will be used for ATVs. So, and then who's going to keep it up, especially with that size rock that's in there, it's not going to last long.
Yeah, so one of the things that can be done with that is it can be compacted to help with erosion as far as ATVs going up and down it. But one of the things that we've also seen, what I do believe the state of New York, actually no, they don't have that issue. The other thing that you can do is the trail group can charge a entrance fee if it's going to be used by motorized vehicles, and then that typically would pay for the maintenance of the line. And if you look at I have no idea how many ATVs are in this area. What I've heard before is that it's a very, very popular area for that. If you look at, say, 50,000 going down there a year and an admittance price of, say, $10 a machine, that'll be more than enough to pay for the maintenance of it. The other thing that you can look at doing, if the trail group so chose, would be to pave it. We see that in quite a few different areas of the country. Actually, the line that we're doing out in the Chesapeake Bay is all going to be paved. And that also will help with the cost of it being washed away or erosion. But that does have a upfront cost.
So you're saying that there would have to be a trail committee formed?
So there would be a trail group that would take responsibility for the line. There are several hundred of them in the U.S., and several of them are looking to basically help with additional lines. Most of those that are already formed that are looking at additional lines, they do it as they're all nonprofit entities. And most of them that are looking to do it as a service basically just look at it as, okay, we're going to have the ownership of this line, but then they don't typically charge any entrance, and they also don't typically do much in maintenance besides possibly spray once a year. But if you're going to be, ATVs are one of the things that are more destructive, as probably the most destructive piece of equipment that typically goes down a rails to trails. So if I was to be in this area and you were to basically advertise the line as that, I would highly suggest basically someone charging a small fee for it, for access to the line. And it can be done on the honor system even. I mean, if it's a nominal fee of say $10, $20, most people are gonna pay that just in a box.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, that's why I was suggesting he contact the tourist board.
Yes, I agree.
Simply because, you know, they're going to have the numbers, and then the city of Oak Ridge, he can talk to them to see how it is that they're getting their volunteer groups together and so forth, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Basically, the big point with this is that basically the AOK is wanting to acquire the line, but they're not willing to pay the market price for it.
Right.
And so the concern is that basically if, basically with this 6 mile, with this line that was missed, it could basically stop the abandonment process and cause it to have to restart. And if so, then you're looking at probably another 1.5 to 2 years before the line could be removed and turned to rails to trails.
Okay. Commissioner Yeager?
I'm a Hoosier also, Indianapolis, 56 years. Was your company involved in the Cardinal Greenway or the Monon Trail? Because those are two that I'm very familiar with.
So we did help with the Monon Trail,
Okay,
but not the Cardinal Greenway.
okay.
On the Monon Trail, we did not do the work, but I do believe we sold the rail to Chicago Heights Steel
Okay.
on that one.
That's a fabulous line, I'll tell you.
It is. Yeah, being right there in Indiana, it's nice to help with any lines that we can in the area. There's actually another one, the Nickel Plate Railroad was just done last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? We sure appreciate you coming. Now, do you live in Indiana? Or
I do, yes.
You do? Well, thank you for driving all this way, and we'll be back in touch with you.
Glad I
But,
could be here.
We can get you the information. I'll send it to you. Stephanie Wells is our Director of Tourism, and you
Wonderful.
can speak with her as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for your time.
All right, thank you. All right, the next thing was a private act, possibly grandfathering sitting federal employed commissioners. What my suggestion would be is to contact John Reagan and our Lieutenant Governor and speak to him about trying to speak to the Attorney General to see if we can't get that done and see if that's permissible. Chairman Anderson, you know, we were going to have some discussion about that with him here tonight, but he's, due to some other complications, he wasn't able to make it. So I think if we could just go ahead and send this on to full commission, and then in the meantime, I'll try to reach out to John Reagan and Lieutenant Governor.
I will make a motion here to possibly grandfather sitting federal employed commissioners from being able to rerun. Can I get a second so I can ask my question here?
I'll say.
Okay. The problem I've heard is we don't have time for this next election. What's your thought on that?
I think they probably get an Attorney General's opinion pretty quick, you know, faster than anything else.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
All right.
Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am,
What do you think timeframe was regarding this,
for a private act?
for a request to grandfather in sitting federal employers for our commissioners?
Tim knows more than I do. I don't know how that's going to work. The Hatch Act is a federal law. The Tennessee General Assembly has no jurisdiction over that federal law. But they may have some idea that I just don't know about. So I'm willing to do anything you guys want me to do, but as far as grandfathering sitting county commissioners in this, I don't know how that would work with the Hatch Act, because the Hatch Act is the obstacle to the few commissioners that we have that work for federal entities, DOE, DOD, U.S. Postal Service, things of that nature. So, but again, you may have more information, and they may have more information.
Representative
Whatever I can do
Reagan.
to help, I'll be glad to do it.
Yeah, Representative Reagan gave a little speech and talked about that at our last meeting.
He thought there was a mechanism?
Well, well, yes, he actually did. He thought, that they could still run as independent because there's so many things involved about being contractors and all this other, but I think there was several things that he brought up. That's why I thought, if we could get them involved,
Worth a try.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any, the problem is the state election commission has said that if one party announces a partisan election, then the whole election is partisan. So the ones that don't want to align with one particular party would have to run as independents, I guess is the way it used to be, but whatever I can do, I'll be glad to help.
Okay.
I'm just not familiar with exactly his idea there, and I'll try to find out.
Yeah, well, I think it's worth an effort.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, I'll do whatever I can. Thank you.
Commissioner Wandell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll certainly support this. I guess the thing I would question is how it would stand up in future elections. It looks, obviously, this would take care of the current commissioners if they are reelected, as far as the grandfather clause goes, but it kind of opens up the next election in my mind. If somebody wants to run and then they can't, but then they say we let it for some others. So I guess what I'd like to say, Mr. Chairman, is the easiest thing to do, and all the pieces are already in place, is to get Representative Reagan and Lieutenant Governor McNally to pass resolution number 21-10-898, which was what we passed as a unified body of this body, full commission 15-1, to allow constables and commissioners to run as nonpartisan as they have since the 1800s. That would be the easiest thing, and I would ask for your support and the mayor's support and anyone else that could touch Representative Reagan and Lieutenant Governor to ask them to simply allow that to happen. Because what we're doing here is we're trying to figure out a way to go around that with grandfathering. We really wouldn't have to be talking about grandfathering if we would just pass the resolution this body passed. And keep in mind, 16 commissioners sit around this table, elected by the people of this county, and the people we represent asked us to bring this to the forefront. We did so. Now it's incumbent upon State Representative John Reagan and Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally to act upon our request. Now, I suspect they could possibly drag their feet until the qualification deadlines are over, which I suspect will happen. But at the same time, the people that vote will probably remember that. And they'll know that this was really about political parties not really doing what's best for the people in this county. So, I think that's the easiest solution.
I spoke with Representative Reagan. He said he's never failed to, if he's been sent legislation, he takes it up because that's his job.
Well, so the motion we have in front of us is to get a letter, get a resolution, send it on.
Yeah.
But what you're telling me is he'll take that up quickly, but the one we've already sent, he
Well, I
might
think
take up at some point in life.
This one here will go to the Attorney General, to get so that's different from having to go to committee and having to be voted on and all that.
Well, I just think we followed the procedures the way we're supposed to. I contacted the Secretary of State, Trey Hargett. He explained to me what was required for us to kind of get something in place to protect our county from this political partisan stuff, because this body does not need political partisan. Our country is full of it, and I'm sick of it. I sit here representing the people in my district in this county. I'm not here to represent any political party. End of story. And when I fail, the people I represent let me know about it. And I don't make everybody happy, but I try to make the majority. I try to represent them the best as I can, and you do the same thing. But I guess just what I'm saying, it's kind of difficult for me to understand. We'll look at a private act possibility for grandfathering, but the one we passed 15-1, we can't seem to get any feedback on. So it just doesn't, I'll vote for this too, just so we can try to keep our good commissioners that are on right now, because I don't want to see them go nowhere. Again, it's just a situation that it is what it is, I guess. But I sure hope that those gentlemen in the state will pick up this cause and pass this private act. That's the simplest thing for Anderson County, in my opinion. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Scott?
Thank you. I find it very unfortunate that you have egg on your face, Mr. Chairman. I really do. And I think it's sad that you're having to backpedal and ask for commission to grandfather certain commissioners in, but that stops others from being able to run for a position that they may want.
Well, this was because of a discussion with
The whole
Commissioner
thing is
Anderson,
wrong.
and I said, we can try that.
It's all wrong. And it's like Commissioner Wandell said, we stand up and speak on behalf of the people. I don't stand for any party. My personal beliefs, when I go into the booth, that's up to me to decide who I want to represent me.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, I represent them.
Well, I
And
think our
they aren't happy
constituents
about
realize
this.
that. They realize that, what you are and what you stand for.
They aren't happy
Yeah.
about it.
Okay.
And I just, when I got the agenda, I just kind of went, huh. You don't want to know what came out of my mouth.
Well, that's okay. This
And
was
you can
just
piece it
because of
together any way
conversation
you
I had with
want.
Commissioner Anderson.
But I think it's really sad that Commissioner Anderson can't run. Right now, he can't run again. Commissioner Fritz can't run again. And like I said, there's others out there that are very interested in being in, as a public servant, that can't.
Of course, the Hatch Act has tried to be overturned a couple of times throughout history.
This was snuck up on us. It's not like it was put in the press. It wasn't put out on the radio. Nobody even farted news about it on Facebook. And we came in one night and were told, oh, by the way, this is what's going to happen. And we went, oh, right, sure it will. And it did. What was it, 9 people sat at a table and decided what the fate of the county was? That's pretty lame.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is an Attorney General opinion similar to what we've tried to do on nonpartisan elections in a private act, preventing a partisan election. In fact, it's out of Shelby County, where they made their DA and several other office holders nonpartisan. And the Attorney General has opined that that is permissible. But anyway, there is an AG opinion. There's no need to ask for another AG opinion on that issue. It's still out there and it's controlling. And I've got a copy if anybody needs it. Thank you.
Okay.
Good question, Jay. So in that process in Shelby County, did they go through the state representatives and do the private act? Is that the way that went, or did they just do it internally?
No, they put a private act in place.
Like we did?
Exactly. And the General Assembly passed it. And then they took it back to Shelby County Commission. They adopted it. It's a very similar language to what ours is.
And all we're waiting on is for it to be taken up and voted upon in Nashville.
Yes, I think Commissioner Anderson had asked for it to be taken up early in the session, so there's no problem with the deadlines. They normally take private acts up first of the session, at the end of the session, but I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it recently, but I believe that's what he asked for him to take it up early in the session so we could get this settled and move forward and get it effective in Anderson County by the county commission. Has to, again, the whole routine, the county commission has to pass it again by 2/3.
Right. What, from your perspective as the county attorney, do you see anything dangerous or risky in the state elected officials passing the resolution that we presented to them?
there's other private acts other than across the state. There's an AG opinion that says that it can be passed as a private act. The challenge was from Article 11 of the Tennessee Constitution. And I think our position here in Anderson County is a lot greater than the position in Shelby County because of all the federal employees here.
Right.
And the history of Anderson County Commission with numerous federal employees serving. We've had them my entire career serving on this body. So Shelby County is not the only one that has this. Some of them have been adopted locally, but those that wanted to take it out of the local executive party's hands went ahead and passed a private act on it. And they're out there, but that's totally up to, I'll have to defer to Representative Reagan and Lieutenant Governor McNally. That they know how the things work, and I think they can get it done. Lieutenant Governor McNally's got a lot of support in the General Assembly, and so does
Absolutely.
Representative Reagan. And if they wanted to get it done, I think they could get it done. But again, I don't know the ins and outs of how they want to do it, and I've not spoken to them, but they're good men, and I'm sure they're going to do what's right for Anderson County. They always have in the past.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, we're going to send this forward to full commission for further discussion. Is that the motion?
Yes.
Have a motion second. All in favor?
No,
We got 3 ayes and 1 no.
you've got it listed as grandfathering sitting federal employed commissioners.
Well, that's
Change it
just,
so
that's
it's
for
the
discussion.
people. Change it so it's for the people, and you'll have my back.
What do you say, Commissioner Gager?
I don't think it's fair that you grandfather 2 people in and keep the rest of the county out.
I'm gonna leave my motion as it is.
Okay. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as the seconder of the motion, I agree with Commissioner Scott, so I don't know what the process is, but I'd like to withdraw my second. And I didn't give a verbal vote when you took it, but I would like to withdraw my second of the original motion.
Okay. Well, then motion fails for lack of second.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on.
Thank you.
Next is mayor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I know I was wearing a sweater early, but I had a little mishap, so that's why I'm in a coat. The first item on the agenda, I don't know if you all received an email from the state of Tennessee. They are, I guess the governor is looking at doing a reexamination of BEP funding and how that will operate. Director of Schools, Dr. Parrott, mentioned this at the Budget Committee as well. We just received the invitation of the sessions on Friday afternoon. On Wednesday, they sent an update, or Tuesday afternoon at 5:30, they sent an update on all of the locations. One of the requirements is that a county commissioner or local funding entity representative selected by a county commission attend this session. The problem is, the deadline was Friday before lunchtime. So I do know that Commissioner Meade sent out an email to everyone asking to serve in that capacity. But what I have done is just put it on here as something for you all to consider and appoint, knowing that he did volunteer, but then there may be others of you that want to serve in that position as well. I'm not making that decision, but I am just putting it on here that they do want someone appointed to serve. I don't know how many other discussions will happen going forward. I don't know if you want a permanent appointee, if you want to rotate, that's completely up to this body. And you may want to wait and determine that, think about it, and come up with something at full commission, but I just wanted to make you aware of that requirement that was in there. It's something I can't choose.
Mr. Wandell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mayor, for bringing this up. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if Commissioner Yeager would be interested or have the time. I certainly respect Commissioner Yeager's vast experience and knowledge of finance, and I would certainly like to use his experience to be one to represent this body. In addition to that, he also represents the city of Oak Ridge and the county, and he does a very good job of representing both rural and city. And if he's interested, I'd like to make a motion, if he would accept, to be our representative for this Tennessee school funding and the BOP process. Would you be interested, Mr. Yeager? Well, I wanted to ask first before I made the motion. Yeah.
Sure, I'm always honored to be nominated to things if the rest of the commission thinks I'm capable.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion that Phil Yeager represent Anderson County Commission along with the mayor. Mayor, you're going to be there as well, isn't that right?
Well, I actually was at an event on Friday, so I did not realize that the cutoff, I just assumed it was end of day on Friday. So I have emailed them and
Okay.
asked them if I can be there.
Well, I
And I
hope
haven't
you-
heard back yet.
I hope
but-
you can. I'd like to make the mayor a part. She doesn't need this, but I'll make her a part of this motion because she's important to be there as well. So that would be my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And I must second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wandale, second by Commissioner Scott, to make Yeager and the mayor the representative. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, next I have Brian Porter with a statistical report for County Commission on the Anderson County Animal Shelter. And then everything else I have on my agenda is not an action item, just a status report, so I can make them as short or as long as you like. But I'll step aside for Brian right now.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
What I've handed you, this first sheet, it kind of shows our progress from 2016 when we started with the dogs and the cats, and it kind of gives you intake numbers and what was euthanized. And if you follow that through 17, 18, 19, 20, then we're going to step into the current. And you'll notice in our first year, we had 325 dogs and 276 cats. Well, last year, we had 400 dogs and 615 cats. This year, we have 459 dogs and 639 cats, and this last count's not complete because we still have December to go. So we have dramatically increased in the number of animals that have came in, and this year alone, we've received 1,098 animals. And out of that 639 cats that came in, I'm proud to say 524 of them left our facility alive and well. They went through adoptions, they went through rescues, they went through reclaims. So that's, that's big if you look back at the original sheet when we had a 70% euthanasia in 2017. And for this year, we have for the cats alone, if you'll, the numbers you're looking at on the 2021 sheet at the top is the total overall euthanasia. And then I have it broken down into the dogs and then the cats. So this year for the cats, the euthanasia rate is 18%. And considering we came from 71% to 18%, I think is marvelous. And our dog euthanasia rate was 39%. Well, that gave us an overall euthanasia rate to date at 14%, which is good. Our overall adoption rate is 52%. Our overall rescue rate is 19%. Our overall reclaim rate is 13%. There is a 2% that died. That is for puppies and kittens that came in that had parvo or panleukopenia, something that, was pretty acute, and we just lost them. But our numbers are gonna exceed this year what they did last year. They already have, and I still have a month to go. So, but I think we're making marvelous progress. We've placed a lot of animals this year alone. I had 180 adoptions for the dogs. I had 129 reclaims for the dogs. I had 106 went to rescue. I had 40 that were euthanized. I had 4 that died.
I hate to interrupt, but I just want to, since it's going to be a lot of numbers, what is the capacity of dogs and cats at any one time?
I have 20 cat cages and 12 dog cages.
Okay, thanks.
So, and then with the cats, out of the 639, I had 389 of them were adopted. I had 9 that were reclaimed. I had 107 that were pulled by rescue. There were 115 euthanized. And then I have 19 that died. And what the 19 stands for is we had a panleukopenia outbreak back earlier in the spring, and that's pretty acute on kittens. So we come in, there's like 2 kittens dead. You come in, 2 kittens dead. So we kind of went through a little window there where we lost a lot of kittens. And that's usually in your June, July, and August months is when that happens, because we're just overrun. And if you look at the cat intake for June, we had 85 cats come in the month of June. I got 20 cat cages. We had 43 come in the month of July. We had 62 come in August. In October, we had 105 cats. And, I mean, I think we do outstanding for the little bitty spot that I have to work with, and I'm not dogging it. It's a wonderful little shelter. We make a lot of things happen. So, if there's any questions, the only thing I know to do is show you guys the numbers, and they'll speak for themselves one way or the other.
Mr. Scott?
How many employees do you have?
I have 2 full-time animal control officers. I have a shelter manager. I have a part-time person that takes care of the PetSmart, and I have a part-time person that helps at the shelter with cleaning.
What are the hours of operation?
We're open 9 to 4, Monday through Friday, close 12 to 1 for lunch. We're open 9 to 1 on Saturdays.
What is how do you go about sending them out to fosters when you're overwhelmed, or explain some of the process of
Okay,
that?
I will. Fosters, we try to use fosters for animals that are too small to be sent for spay and neuter. Every Thursday, we transfer animals to Planned Parenthood to have them spayed and neutered. Well, your cats have to weigh 2 pounds. So if we have kittens that are too small, we reach out to fosters and try to get them in there so they can get a little weight on. We don't have that problem so much with dogs. Most of the dogs meet the weight. If we have an older cat or a cat that just, may need a little help, that we know is going to make a good cat, we'll use a foster. But fosters are just really there for the small kitties, neonates, things that might need bottles and things of that nature to try to make it up to the window where we can get them spayed or neutered. Our adult cats, normally we don't really have to require a foster. We try to get them placed, but if we do have somebody that'll foster them, we do. And, we've sent out, I think last year, 107, we sent 115 to rescue last year, and that kind of includes the fosters and the rescues. I include them all together because they're all pulling the cats out of our facility, and then when they're coming back, the foster ones, they usually go to PetSmart or go straight out to adoption.
You said that they may make a good pet. You pass them on to fostering?
Well, what I'm saying is if I have a feral that comes in that's just bonkers off the wall, nobody's going to foster it. I mean, we have to use nets to even handle them. So that's the ones I mean.
But if somebody captured you and threw you in a cage, don't you think you'd be bonkers?
Well, I get that all the time, but everybody here, I think, knows the difference between a scared cat and a feral cat. It's very obvious. We get them in all the time. We hold them 3 days. If they're scared, it's pretty obvious. They calm down. You can tell. If they're feral, you can tell. You come in the next morning, cage is trashed. They've spent all night trying to get out. And once people come in and turn on the lights, they spend all day behind the litter box and don't move. You go out, go home, turn out the lights, come in the next day, same thing. It's trashed. And my employees, we have to open that door and get a litter box in there and get food and water in there and try to clean these animals. And they're in a cage that's 2 foot by 2 foot.
Mm-hmm.
A scared cat will sit there and say, okay. A feral cat will say, I'm coming out. So it's pretty obvious. You can tell a feral and just a scared cat.
How many volunteers do you have?
Had quite a few at one time, and they kind of come and go. The BART kids are there every Saturday. I have a lady that comes maybe twice a week, once a week. She'll show up to do dishes and stuff. And I've had other people that have came and volunteered.
What are the requirements for getting an animal, to adopt one?
Basically, just that you're going to give it a good home, you've not been convicted of any cruelty charges, that you agree to bring it back to us if you can't keep it, that you agree to take it to the vet and provide veterinary care.
And the reason why I'm asking this is because back when when the mayor had started the task force, one of the reasons was because we needed a facility as well as, from what I can recall, it's like the city of Oak Ridge was sending them over to Roane County. Roane County wasn't keeping them. They were euthanizing and so on and so forth. So it was an opportunity for us to save the animals and find them good homes. With the feral animals, from what I recall, it was a matter of getting a vet and/or UT involved where they could come out and neuter the animals, and they would do the cut the tip of the ear of the cat so that they knew that anyone from your department would know that when they saw that animal out in the county, that it had already been spayed and/or neutered.
Right.
Have you been following Facebook at all?
Lord, I wish Facebook would fall off the face of the earth.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you've been following what's going on?
Well, I try not to, because I try to stay focused that,
And I do
that
too.
myself and my people are doing good work trying to help animals and not get caught up in something that's just, it's just unnecessary. We save animals' lives. If people will show up at the door and say, I want a feral, I'll give them 4. If people show up at the door and say, I'll take all your wild kitties, I'll put them in the car for them. Nobody does that. I'm stuck with ferals brought in by the public. It's not my guys catching them. It's people hand over fist coming in with their own traps they got at the hardware store. They're sick of them. Once they come into my building, by law, they can only leave either being rescued or pulled or adopted. I can't turn them loose. And if nobody's going to rescue them and nobody's going to pull them and nobody's going to adopt them, I got 20 cages and 639 cats last year to
So,
date.
and what is your method of making the public aware that you have animals for adoption?
Facebook.
That's it.
Yep.
Why are you not putting them on Channel 95? Or, putting an ad in the paper, or?
We use Facebook. I really don't
We have a
the-
television station in
Right.
the county that can be utilized for things like this.
Right.
To just weigh on Facebook with hopes that someone's going to see, that there's a kitten available. It is good in the sense of advertising, but you're right, people are steering away from Facebook because of the
Right.
negative Nancys and Debbie Downers.
Yep.
I've been off of Facebook for some time, and it's because I can't handle all of the negative people out there and what they've got to say.
Tell it.
So this is not, that's why I was asking you if you've been following the comments on Facebook, because they're not positive comments. And personally, I think it's management that needs to address that and find ways to make the public aware that we have animals that need homes.
Yep.
I'm personally looking for a kitten, but every time I open Facebook and get bombarded with what's going on at the Anderson County Animal Shelter, it's gone. And now I'm looking in Loudoun County.
That's what's so unfortunate about all those negative remarks. It doesn't affect me, it affects those animals.
It's affecting me. I'm having nightmares.
Right.
And I'm all about, don't shop, adopt, rescue the animals. I'm all about it, but I can only handle so much.
Well, I invite anybody to come down to the shelter, and they can stay there all day, every day, and they'll see what we do.
I do go over to PetSmart in Oak Ridge, and I'm saddened to find that they have a number of windows that are empty.
We fill them up as fast as we can get them in there. They have to be fully vetted. I can't send anything over there till it's fully vetted. And as fast as we put them in there, they get adopted.
And
So
that's good, that's
that is
great.
good.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think that would be more of a positive impact. I don't care if you have to put 2 in a cage or 3 in a cage, because they're
Right.
selling like wildfire. That's great. That's a great problem to have,
As
that you
soon as
can't
we
keep
get
them in
'em-
stock.
Yeah, well, as soon as we get them, they have to be spayed and neutered and fully vetted, and we only do that on Thursdays with Planned Parenthood. So as fast as I get them and they get vacancies, they take them. And that's all I can do. I have to adhere to the PetSmart policy as to what they'll allow us to have in there, and it has to be a fully vetted animal.
Well, I know that there are foster groups. I've gotten a few of mine. I've even encouraged other friends to go to meet with the groups at Pet Supply Plus or PetSmart or whatever event they're at, to encourage them to adopt any animals,
Absolutely.
and especially cats and kittens. And I think it's important that you utilize those avenues. Thank you.
Commissioner Wandell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, if I recall correctly, when I got on commission in 2006, we used to take all of our animals to Oak Ridge, is that right?
That's correct.
We didn't even have a shelter, did we?
That's correct.
And what happened to those animals from there, we really didn't know. I mean, we paid a certain amount of money, I think it was $20 per animal, and I can't remember, but it was just you, I think, maybe one other person.
It was me for a pretty good while, and then we hired Officer Miller.
We had one vehicle, I think,
Yeah.
and then when the mayor came along, Mayor Frank I'm speaking of, she obviously got involved, Commissioner Blosky, Commissioner Scott, and many others, but, you know, I appreciate what you do. You know, I used to probably be a negative person when we first started talking several years ago, but, you know, I like the numbers I'm seeing. I know you can't save every one of them.
Yep.
You try. But it sounds like to me something that could happen in just hearing the discussion is maybe there can be a work group come together. I know we got people here apparently that are upset with some of the way the ferals are treated or any cat or ant dog treated. I understand that, but also understand we can't fix everything. But together we can fix anything. So I think what it would take is, and it has to be an open dialogue, it has to be people figuring out solutions. So I hear yourself and Commissioner Scott dialogue about PetSmart. Well, what could we do, and I understand they got to be vetted, I'm not saying it's your fault, but what could we do to get more vetted quicker? What could we do to get things moving faster? And for you, it's probably going to, I need more resources, and that's where we can step in to help. You know, you've taught me a lot about animals. I mean, how we handle them in the county. I really appreciate Mayor Frank and how she got involved with this, made it happen, and I'm willing to help in any way. I personally, as a commissioner, do not believe you're doing things to intentionally harm animals. I just don't believe that. You've been doing this too long to be that type of person.
right.
So I appreciate that. So I guess, Mr. Chairman, you know, what I'd like to say, and maybe the mayor has some thoughts after this, but is there any way we can develop a task force or a workshop committee to where we can bring in the animal control, bring the mayor in, and maybe a couple of commissioners, like Commissioner Scott, I'll be happy to go as well, but and start trying to figure out ways we can get solutions to these problems instead of everybody kind of attacking and, you know, it's your fault, and you should do this, you should do that. Well, I'd rather see us come up with some tangible solutions to prevent any issues.
Commissioner Wandell, to your exact point, I met with Director Porter as well as Mr. Yeager and one of the representatives of the feral cat groups, and we had, I guess, a little over an hour-long conversation. We did discuss some of these very things, and I did promise her, as did Brian, that we will work on some strategies. One of the issues with feral cats is we are limited, of course, as a government agency. As Brian mentioned, we have people in the community who trap the cats, who don't like them on their property, who bring them to us. And so we're in a balancing act, and we can find a home for them and have. We actually used to have a partnership with someone, and then we discovered that they weren't doing a proper barn program like the one particular feral individual, feral cat advocate that we're meeting with right now. But instead, it was more of an abandonment. And then that puts the county in a position where we're violating the very laws that we're charged with enforcing. So we have promised, I did ask that particular individual, I said, we're entering into the holidays. We have some reviews to go over with some of the allegations that have been made. And give us 60 days, and we'll come up with some better ways, and we'll work with them on how to communicate for these ferals. I do want to credit, folks past and folks present. We've got some darn good statistics for the money that you all appropriate to us.
Which isn't much.
Yes, and, if you look at our website and you look at the sheer number of partnerships we have, we wouldn't have those partnerships if we were horrible people to work with. And you can look online and you see a lot of these rescue organizations that pull. You see a lot of veterinarians that help us. You see folks from outside of the area. And we're able to do amazing things, but it does take a lot of emotional energy to do that. And when PetSmart came available, there is a reason that Anderson County is there, and that's because this man said PetSmart's available, and Jay Yeager kicked it into high gear and got us the contract approved, and we ran down to purchasing to beat the other agencies there, because we knew at that time we didn't even have 20 cages. And so incrementally, with your all's help, and you know this when we come every year at budget, we're saying, here's what we've done, help us go further. And we're going to continue to aspire to go further, but it takes time, it takes cooperation, and, I have been at this since I was a little girl riding in the back seat of the car, and I went down with my mom to the cage behind Oliver Springs Police Department where they kept their strays. I have been at this that long, and the number one issue is overpopulation. And it's sad when I see us fight with each other when we all have the same goal. And the problem is irresponsible breeding. And I had a phone call before I left the office from a lady up in the Medford area whose neighbor has cats upon cats upon cats that are coming over to her. We've got to get to that neighbor, and we have to educate. We cannot handle this one adoption, one rescue at a time. We're going to have to get in front of it at some point. And so hopefully that is part of the conversation. But we are going to work with these folks, the Feral Friends and the Feral Rescues. They had some good ideas about how to better communicate with the advertising, how our team can better communicate. One of the issues is there aren't that many cat rescues. You can go on our website, you'll see Dachshund, Coonhound, Golden Retriever, Boxers, Slum Dog, a lot of dog rescues. Cat rescues are not, there's not that many of them. And, that's not an indictment of welfare organizations, but there's not the same pool to to tap into. So we can develop some better strategies, and we're willing to do that, and we'll continue to work on that. We'll reconnect with these folks and come up with the solutions that you've mentioned, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, I should have known the mayor was already on top of it, having the meetings, and I appreciate the update, Mayor. And I also would like to say thanks to our county law director, Jay Yeager.
It's Mayor Brian.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
but I appreciate your help. Could we use American Recovery Plan money to help? Would it be eligible to be utilized to help address these issues? I mean, I know we can't do this right this second, but just a thought, maybe we could use some of those funds to address those issues. And then, Mr. Porter, Director Porter, to Commissioner Scott's point, I mean, I would like to use Channel 95, and I know Andy and the team would be happy to exchange pictures via email and put them up there. How many do we have available now for adoption cats, would you say?
Cats, I probably have 6.
That are ready?
Well, the holds up on them, they probably still need to be spayed and neutered. I only
Okay.
have- Everything that went Thursday, most of that went straight to PetSmart. We had 4 adoptions
I follow.
there this weekend, so I don't think I have anything that's ready that's spayed or neutered.
I follow,
They
okay,
will go out Thursday.
okay. Thank you. Go ahead,
Now, I
Mayor.
do have
on-
1 or 2 that, I'm sorry, I do have 1 or 2 that were surrendered as spayed and neutered, but
Oh, really?
yeah, people surrender them left and right.
Those would be good pets?
Yeah.
For
there's
somebody
nothing wrong with
looking.
them. They were just moving or allergic, there's various
Gotcha.
reasons, but I do, I think, have 2 down there that could leave today.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mayor, I follow.
We are, today at Finance Committee, Chairman Yeager is working on some dates for a workshop, and we can certainly look into that. I do know the process has been a little bit longer than we had hoped for on the categorical exclusion for the USDA application that you all did authorize. I got word last week that we will be required to do some archaeological drilling, I guess, as part of that. So I've got a proposal on that. I haven't pulled Brian's count analysis yet to see where his donations are, but we're going to look at that and see if we can bring that to the Budget Committee for January. And that will be, Bill Blankenship, the architect, did talk with the folks down in Nashville, and he said, is this absolutely the last hurdle before we could file the application? And they assured us it was.
Let me ask this question, kind of crazy, I guess, but, I see all the TCAT stuff for welding and jobs and machinery, and it's all tremendous. I'm wondering, would it be possible for us to develop in Anderson County school system something for vets to where we can utilize our current, animal shelter, our school system, and develop some kind of program or class to have young men and women that want to be vets? Can we start that process?
That's an excellent idea. We can definitely look into that. I love that idea. Our animal control officer, Officer Wren, his daughter is looking to be a veterinarian. It's very competitive. UT is one of the most competitive, as is LMU now. But there is a lot of interest in animal welfare at the high school level. And with our facility, one of the differences between our facility and a lot of places is it's all open. There's not an employees-only section.
Right,
I mean,
right.
just the sheer size of it. So there's only so much someone can do down there. I mean, really and truly.
Well, maybe the new location, we
Yeah.
can have a room designated for training for some Anderson, I'm sure.
We've got that drawn into the plans.
Excellent, excellent.
It's
All right.
actually an educational training
I'll be
room.
quiet, but I appreciate all you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Waddell, I do know in doing some of my studies on, COVID, is that there has been a tremendous across the nation of people turning in animals because of COVID related, and I understand that's part of the guidelines for that money is it has to have, go back to being, it affects the COVID affects this situation drastically, and I think we would probably fit inside that guideline, but still yet there's more to be learned.
Excellent.
Anything else?
I would
Mr.
like
Scott.
to ask that if I mean, you have several groups. If one person at least could just step forward to express why they're here. This is our operations meeting, ladies and gentlemen. It's before the county commission meeting. So this is an opportunity for you to be able to step forward to, as you heard the presentation earlier, to speak your points and topics, to help us, essentially.
Hi, my name is Natalie Weinkoop. I work for the Anderson County Shelter. I am the part-time employee that oversees the PetSmart in Oak Ridge. And I hear a lot of the concerns of the community. I'm actually have kind of become the liaison between a lot of the community and the shelter because my phone number is literally up. When people call PetSmart looking for a cat, they get my personal cell phone number. I actually live in Blount County over by the airport. I drive all the way over here for a $12 an hour job part-time because I believe that the Anderson County Shelter is doing wonderful things. I think that it's come really far. The community did not even have a shelter a couple of years ago. I actually came by the shelter years and years ago, and it was just this rinky-dink little shelter inside of a recycling community. So I know you guys have done wonderful things. I think that there's a lot of resources in the community that we are not effectively utilizing, and we absolutely can because they are actually reaching out towards me and asking, please use these resources, please do this for us, please let us do this for you. And I have communicated some of them, and I know that there is a lot of, with cat ladies, there's a lot of cat lady politics. And so I know that there's been a lot of things that have happened in the past that I don't quite understand, but I've been doing this for 20 years. I've literally worked in pet stores taking care of cats for 20 years. At 16 years old, I had 22 foster kittens. I used to specialize in orphan kittens and socializing feral kittens. And then I also took in some FIV cats and basically bottle babies. So what I do is what I've done since I was a kid. To answer a couple of the questions that came up, with the feral community, Feral Feline Friends has actually reached out to me and offered, and they have offered in the past to work with us with a TNR program. TNR programs are fantastic. They're called trap neuter releases. Young William Animal Shelter actually utilizes a trap neuter release program to keep their numbers lower. Young Williams Animal Shelter, the way they're structured is they are non-for-profit, and they have the Knox City Animal Control and the Knox County Animal Control bring them animals. My understanding is that they bring the animals in. If Animal Control brings a cat in and it doesn't get reclaimed, they just fix it and they put it back where it was. Now, I don't think that they they ear tip them and they just put them back. And they're not utilizing the program as effectively as I'd like to see them because sometimes they're putting back kittens and things like that, but I think that we could definitely use that. I know that we run into issue with people constantly complaining of cats, but maybe we can take that on a case-by-case basis. At least the cat is now fixed and it's not being a problem. It might not show up if it's not in heat, if it's neutered and, your cat. So it might resolve at least half of the problems in the community, and it reduces the cat population that is reproducing. The benefit to TNR, when you take a cat out of a community, there's another cat somewhere that just had 6 kittens and it's going to replace that cat. When you're doing TNR, you are stopping that because cats are territorial. So now you have a big old tomcat that knows how to fight, and now you've put him back, and he's not going to let any other tomcats take over. So nobody else is going to reproduce in that area. So it helps keep the numbers down. As far as ways to advertise our cats, Facebook really is the simplest way because all we have to do is snap a picture and post it on Facebook. It takes a lot of time. There's Pet Finder. We have had volunteers do that. It's a lot of time-consuming things to get the animals. So snapping a picture and having volunteers really, really helps with that. It's just that's a matter of having somebody, and you know how hard it is right now to have employees that actually do their job. Having somebody who do it for free right now is very hard to get people because you have to have somebody who has access to your information to log in, that's making sure that they're keeping it up. Because I will come by the shelter every 2 or 3 days, and it'll be a completely different set of cats than when I was in there a couple of days ago. So, and I know that there's a lot of animals that come and go really fast, so that is hard to utilize. The way that I do it over at PetSmart is because once I get them in there, they're kind of freaked out. They're not very photogenic at that point. So I will wait and see who gets adopted, because I do usually most of my adoptions on Fridays and Saturdays when I get them in Fridays. And then if they're still there Sunday, then I do pictures. So I just kind of do it that way, where I'm like, if they're a cute fluffy kitten and they go right back out the door, no need to advertise them. So I focus on the seniors and things like that.
So you get them on Fridays?
I get them on Fridays because they get neutered. So we do, we have 10 cats, the Planned Parenthood. We work with Planned Parenthood to get them fixed. We have 5 spays and 5 neuters of cats. Dogs, there's a little bit different of a policy with that, but we only get 10 spays and neuters a week. So I'm only allowed to have 10 cats from Planned Parenthood through us that come into a week. That's why sometimes those windows are empty. That's what's going on right now, is I'm down to 2 cats, but they were all full, and everyone that's available got adopted. And then I guess there's some more at the shelter. I tend to take off Monday and Tuesday, so I would pick them up on Wednesday to take them over to PetSmart. And so we have had a couple of organizations offer to help us pay, because we have a certain price that we can afford to pay for each spay and neuter based on the adoption fee. And Planned Parenthood's one of the few in the area that will actually spay and neuter them for that cost. But we have had a couple of organizations that offered to help pay like the overflow, like if we wanted to take them to Clinton Animal Hospital, or there's a couple of different vets around here that do low-cost spay and neuter. It's just Planned Parenthood tends to be the cheapest one. So that policy, like that's just something that we're trying to work within the limitations of just the animal community and low-cost spay and neuter. As far as the school systems, working with the school system, I've actually had the Oak Ridge, she's a new director in one of the programs over there, but she reached out to me. They want to start doing volunteers with the kids to come into PetSmart and help take care of the animals. They'll have an adult with them, and then we'll come in twice a week and take care of the animals. And my plan is to set it up kind of like a homeschooling type thing, where they come in and we talk, like I have a couple of I have a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old that come in. 13-year-old comes in with a grandmother, and a 17-year-old comes in with me on Saturday, and we talk about why this cat is behaving this way, biology, behavioral sciences, things like that, why it's important to get animals spayed and neutered, things like just, I kind of turn it into a science project kind of thing, and so I'm hoping that the schools will focus on that. We also, the Anderson County schools have reached out to me. They do volunteer at the shelter on Saturday, but they have some of their students that need extra hours for whatever program, and so they've reached out to me to coordinate having their students come in and working there. And there's not as much to do at PetSmart. We only have at most 6 cages worth of cats. Sometimes that's like 21 cats if there's kittens, like, because we can put multiple kittens in a cage. But and it's a lot more work when we do that. But there's not always a ton of work, but it is a lot of it's not only good working with the animals, you're learning to basically sales. I mean, when we get in there and people come up to the window, hey, do you want to come back and pet that cat? Do you have a cat at home? Because 90% of my adoptions are, well, I wasn't looking for a cat today. Every single one. So, and that's how a lot of it works. Or we've been looking, but we're not sure. There's a lot of that. So it's a lot of just learning to work with people, learning to communicate things, and learning how to educate people on what to expect, so it reduces our return rate. Because the last thing we want is somebody's like, oh, a fluffy kitten, and has never had a cat, gets at home and realizes they never needed a cat. So it's a lot of communication. With these ones we've had a couple that are semi-feral that come into PetSmart. We can pet them and love on them a bit, but not a ton. They don't like it, especially in that PetSmart where there's so many people right there that kind of panic. So communicating to people like, hey, this is a cat that might live under your bed, it might just be in your house, it's just going to be buddies with your other cat, but it will be, and I've had a couple of those people reach out to me with questions later on, but I don't think any of the ones that I've adopted, I adopted 6 semi-ferals out since November 1st, and none of them have come back. And they've all been indoor cats.
Well, I appreciate your honesty and the information. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else?
My name's Nicole Ferrara. I'm an Anderson County resident. I'm also one of the people that run Loudoun County Friends of Animals. We have all of 4 cages and 2 fosters. We adopted out 700 animals, 700 cats this year. 179 were feral. We have a verified barn program in which we teach people how to acclimate feral cats to barns. We've been working with Mayor Frank. We want to thank Mayor Frank. We've been working on the feral situation with Brian as well. We want to thank him. He's been actually really great to come to the table. What we do have an issue with, I think one of our main issues, which we're also discussing with Mayor Frank and the law director and Brian Porter, this is where we differ on opinion, is the FIV positive cats. These, for those that don't know, FIV is they call it a lentivirus. What that means is a very, very slow acting virus that slowly erodes the immune system of a cat. Its dormant phase, its latent phase, is incredibly long. And then the active phase is also incredibly slow. So most cats that have this virus do not succumb to the virus, and it does not show up in the cat. You cannot, it's not like, I'm going to just read it out for you. It's easy. It slowly progresses that it may never affect a cat's immune system. The issue we have is the current policy at Anderson County Animal Shelter is for those particular cats that test positive, it is a euthanization. They are the only shelter that we could find that has that type of policy that we work with. We work with currently Blunt, Monroe, Oak Ridge, Norris. There's a few more. We work with a number of the East Tennessee shelters, some of them being open intake. Anderson County, Blunt County, and Monroe County actually have FIV positive mascots that are free to wander the building. This is not a common transmission disease. It actually has to be saliva directly injected into blood through a deep penetrating bite wound. So this is not, you can't get it from bowls or anything. No sneezing, no bowls, no litter boxes. This is not an easily transmitted disease. It is not a horribly lethal disease. And these cats are a benefit. One of the other issues is the test that most shelters, not just Anderson County, all shelters really use is the most inexpensive, called an ELISA test. For adult cats, it's 32% false positive. For young cats, it's close to 60% false positive. And the vaccination for FIV, there was an FIV vaccine that was discontinued in 2017. That vaccine, unfortunately, any cat that has ever been vaccinated with that vaccine will always test positive, even though they're not. So you have a large percentage of FIV cats that can test positive, and the ones that are truly positive don't really have an issue with the disease. Those cats, as long as they are fixed and friendly, can be rehomed. They can be adopted out. They can live just as long as any other cat with normal care. They have been studies, 2014, the Purdue University concluded a study along with Maddie's Fund that showed that these cats can live unencumbered with other cats that are negative with 0 rate of transmission so long as they were fixed. All cats coming from any of the shelters here, including Anderson County, need to be fixed, so that is not an issue or a hindrance to them being adopted. What we were asking is for a policy change, something that states that FIV cats be allowed to be adopted and pulled by rescue. And we are totally amenable, and I think Mr. Yeager was amenable to writing some type of waiver that an adopter or a rescue can sign, stating that they understand what they are getting is an FIV positive cat, and that they agree to keep it indoors. That's been a major issue. The last FIV positive cat, that's the one that started a big firestorm that we started on Facebook. I can actually now say this because it's after 6 p.m. That cat has been adopted. It was pulled by your veterinary staff, I believe, and your veterinary staff contacted me. I set up an adoption, I put them together, and that cat went home this evening. It is now a happily indoor, his name is Oreo. He will be happy and indoors for the rest of his days. As I said, I know we disagree, but I'm going off of studies from 2014, studies from 2020, and my own personal experience. I've been doing cat rescue for 20 years. I personally have been doing FIV positive rescue for 10 years. And I have had a mixed home with 0 rate of transmission. And I think as long as people are willing to adopt these cats, they deserve every option to.
And Mr. Chairman, I want to say thank you. I mean, I didn't know who was all coming. I just knew they were coming because it was on Facebook. But this is an opportunity to educate the public.
Sure.
So I appreciate this. Very good.
If you have any questions about FIV, I would be happy to answer them. I was a vet tech for a long time. So on top of being in animal rescue, before we moved out here, I was a veterinary tech in the state of California.
You have a contact number or something that you give out to the public, or?
You can contact the Loudoun County Friends of Animals. We have a website. We have a phone number on that website as well as an email address and a physical address.
Okay.
And we are always happy. We have Facebook. We're very active on Facebook. I think I do most of the night shift on Facebook. So if have a random question at 2 o'clock in the morning, most everybody knows here, I will be answering you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I think we have another lady that wants to speak.
Hi, I'm Beverly Kay, and I have been a volunteer at the Anderson County Animal Shelter for quite some time. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm retired from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, where I handle classified information. So I want you to know about the integrity that I carry, and if you can ask anybody in this room about my integrity. I also am retired from ORNL. I am an advanced proficiency practitioner of Healing Touch for Animals, which is energy work. I have spent thousands of dollars on this. I have practiced, I have trained under a lady, Carol Comator, who is the founder of this program, and she is world-renowned in her work. I could do this as a business, but I choose not to. I choose to use it as a volunteer thing to help, particularly with rescued animals. It helps to balance their energy systems. It helps them with traumas. It can help them with sickness, illness, mental, physical, this type of thing. I've spent thousands of hours doing this, volunteering with a lot of different shelters. I actually was the lead cat rescue person at Oak Ridge Animal Shelter. For a couple of years, we went no kill under my team. I was very proud of that. Also, with Nikki and Ryan, ran an organization which is now, to my understanding, not functioning, which was a cat rescue specific to the Oak Ridge area, and that was called SCAR, Secret City Animal Rescue. I also, when you were asking questions about how are they getting the animals seen, as a volunteer, I'm a senior, I'm retired, I'm on a limited income. I also have a sanctuary at my home. I've taken in many kitties that many, frankly, would have been euthanized. I started going to the shelter to help Anderson County. I was trying to go a couple times a week. I actually started an adoptables page for them on Facebook where I was getting the animals out. I was trying to highlight the staff. I was trying to highlight the animals, let them know what we're doing, what we need. I started an Amazon wish list for the animals and was asking what they needed, how could we help them. We tried to increase the quality, get a better quality of food for the animals, because we find that at the shelter, a lot of times if you buy the cheap food, it causes vomiting and diarrhea. They're already stressed. So we were trying to increase that, and we were getting a tremendous response from the public to help us with that, especially with our wish list. I also was doing Pet Finder. So I was going in and taking pictures of all the dogs, all the cats, all the kittens. Most of the time, we would not put kittens on Pet Finder because we were very blessed to have PetSmart. And so we knew that those would go faster, so our concern was more for the seniors and the older cats. So we did have a way of getting them seen. I actually am the person that, I guess this firestorm started when I went into the shelter one day, and I had been there on Friday and went in on Tuesday. And there were 8 empty small cages and 4 empty big cages. And I immediately started looking for cats. I know the cats. I name the cats. I know them. I work with them. And so I didn't see them, and I immediately contacted Natalie, who works at PetSmart, and I said, did you pull these cats to PetSmart? And then I asked the shelter manager, Victoria, I said, where are these cats? And she said, Brian euthanized them this morning. There were 4 of them. I really tried to hold it together, I'll be honest with you. I had to excuse myself to leave to go out to the car to ball. What really distressed me is you have to understand with cats, they can be extremely stressed when they come in the shelter. They can be scared. If it was your own personal cat, they can be frightened. There was one that came in and literally she was just in attack mode. I found out she was pregnant. And somebody challenged me, one of the ACOs challenged me to do Healing Touch for Animals on it. They said, we want to see this. And so I worked with her and used a blanket and stuff. I actually picked her up and held her, and she purred in my arms. But she was at risk, and she was told she was at risk to be put down. That animal was moved immediately. I was concerned, and so I moved her, called a foster, immediately got her out of the shelter. She had her kittens. There are other concerns because the kittens needed some medical care. A couple of them died. They were not given medical care. That is an issue, you all. Some of these animals really need to be vetted, and because there's just not funding to do that, and I know it's a concern for Brian because he says, you know, if I invest in their spay and neuter, or I can't take every animal, and we understand that, to the vet, it's expensive, you know, it's time, it's money. But there are some that really need to be seen. So we actually have taken these animals on our own. We've paid their own bills. And he's even stopped that, actually, even if someone else was paying for it. He said that nobody could go to the vet without his approval, and no animal could be pulled to rescue without his approval. And I didn't understand that. It's now posted. But this one kitty that was extremely scared, she went into care. The foster called the shelter and said, the kittens are sick, I need some vetting care, and it was denied. And she was told that the kittens would be euthanized if they were brought back to the shelter, and that was distressing. So the rescue that I'm involved with, Loudoun County Friends of Animals, actually contacted Monroe County Shelter and was able to get some vetting support for these animals to save their lives. That cat then came back to me as a foster, this feral cat. She was just adopted to a beautiful home, very loving, very caring, purring in my arms. We really rejoice in that. So there are several things that are going on here. One of my concerns is, well, first off, I was asked to leave by Brian. I was upset, and I actually was leaving the shelter because I was very upset, and I talked to him. I've talked to Brian, and I have been friends for years, I thought. And I talked with him about this. I was very distressed about these 4 cats put down. And I can show the picture of, you know, I petted 3 of them. I held one of them that were feral. One of them I had not. It had just come in and was extremely upset. So when they've got big eyes, you want to just, allow them to calm and acclimate to their space. And so I was very distressed at this. And I told Brian, I said, I held this baby in a blanket, and he basically said, I don't care. I don't care that you held that baby in a blanket. And I wanted to make clear that I understood, because we've talked about things before. But he said, basically, with ferals, you've got them, they're getting out, they're climbing the walls, they're doing things, they're getting on the computers, they're upset, they're stressed, and things like that. And I said, well, any animal that comes in is going to be stressed. They're going to be upset, even if it is a pet that comes in. Like this one, it hid behind the litter box, but I picked it up and held it. So he's saying, I said, okay, I came in Friday, the cat came in. I came in Tuesday, the cat's dead. That they're on 3-day stray hold. So if you have a 3-day stray hold where I can't do anything, and we work with lots of rescues, I call fosters, I call rescues, we make notifications to people, please, we post it on Facebook. We work so hard, you all, and this is a volunteer. I don't get paid for this. I do it because I love the animals. So anyway, I lost my train of thought, forgive me. He said ferals, basically, there are not enough people to adopt them, there are not enough people that want them. And I said, well, if they're on stray hold for 3 days, and then they're dead before I ever have time to notify anybody, that animal never stood a chance. So I said, so it's a death sentence here, correct? So to me, I just want to see a policy change, because I want an opportunity to work with those rescues or work with someone that can pull them. And you have fosters particularly that will take scared cats and work with them. And matter of fact, I have 3 FIVs at home with all of my other cats, because I do have a sanctuary. But you can work with these animals. Not all of them. Some of them will hide. Some of them still do. I've gotten cats from Anderson County that I saved their lives, because I don't think they would be alive today. But what I think what needs to happen here is I'd really like to see transparency. And what concerns me is Brian basically, I said, you're asking me to leave because I'm upset over the euthanization of 4 cats. And he said yes. And he said, for a time, whatever that meant, he said, because I've created drama, okay? The drama, I didn't create the drama. The drama came when these animals that we thought were workable and were adoptable were, to me, unnecessarily euthanized when you've got 8 cages and then 4 big cages. And he said, it's not about space. And I lack understanding in that. I want to work with them. I want to work with Brian to help. And I said, I know one day he'd gotten back off vacation. We went in. We had told the shelter manager, she did not disclose this to him, that we had fosters coming for the 2 cats that were going to be put down. One was a heavily pregnant female, and another one was a scared kitten. And he said, they gave me no choice. He said, I walk in off a vacation. They said the shelter was full. Somebody was bringing some in. They're open intake. He said, what am I going to do? It's my job. But the cats that came in, they went straight to PetSmart, so they really didn't need it. So Rosemary, that used to be employed at the shelter, was wonderful. She said she had told Victoria that they had a foster coming for these animals, and but she didn't disclose that, so he euthanized the animals, and I was very distraught over that.
Mr. Chairman, Brian, if there's a 3-day hold and animals are being euthanized because you're closed on one or more of those days, is there not any way to extend that window to compensate?
Yeah, it's 3 business days. So if we're, like, they come in on Friday counts, we're open Saturday counts, we don't count Sunday. At the end of Monday afternoon, that's 3 days that they've made. So Tuesday becomes a property account.
So Tuesday, it's property of the county. So Tuesday, you're euthanizing it on Tuesday. It doesn't go to the vet on Thursday.
If it's feral or sick or wild or something wrong with it, no, it's euthanized.
But they're calling feral cats, scared cats, feral cats.
Well, and that's why I was asking earlier. I mean, if you were stuck in, thrown into a cage, don't you think you'd be going,
I have 5 cats at home. I understand cats well, and I know the difference between a scared cat. I do not want to euthanize anybody's pet. I do not want to euthanize anybody's scared animal. I don't have room, nobody's there to get them. I've got 20 cats. I have to work 639 cats so far this year.
right?
Mr. Chairman, we're getting into,
Please address
and
the
some of
chairman.
these, I need to clarify here. We also have some allegations of a volunteer against an existing employee who is expressing concerns, who has been threatened online, has been doxxed with people looking for her home address. We have a failure to provide complete context about the one picture in the blanket. That took we're doing an HR full review. All of that is going through a process. There are employee rights at stake as well, and we have a responsibility as a government to investigate all of the facts. So I'm not going to ask the employees to come up or their family and defend another employee and on air get into a he said, she said, with potential liability for the county. So just a point of order.
Okay. Sure. We typically only allow 3 minutes for each one to speak, and we went over this. And so do we have the next person, someone else that wanted to speak?
No. Well, Brian says it's a job, and it's his job to make money, and it's a job. And I just would like to see some compassion shown for these animals. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Aaron.
Aaron, where do you live?
I'm currently over in West Knox, but I'm only here in a capacity of, I ended up with a blind feral kitten and a dog that had heartworms. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when the shelter gets full, if somebody comes in with a positive, heartworm positive, they make the short list, right?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Unless somebody's there to pull it or somebody wants it.
Right, and so I get it, it's a hard job. I'm from Massachusetts, we have nonprofit animal shelters everywhere. And I think the biggest problem that Anderson County has is it's a municipal and it requires funding as opposed to being able to actually get funding from somebody else. I pulled that dog. My wife and I have written checks for over $1,000 at this point to get that dog treated. I am going to give that dog to one of my employees after Christmas. They did a weekend. They loved it. That dog's going to go to its forever home after Christmas once it's got its 30-day settle so that it doesn't die from heartworms. All right? Like, people like me exist. I have a blind feral kitten that I'm working with right now. She can't navigate my house completely, but she's getting there. I've only had her for a month or two, right? So my statement to you guys is that you need to start thinking a little bit more on the new side of things, like a new train of thought versus an old school train of thought. Open up your ability. How much can you put in the budget to have somebody, like, I'm paying one of my employees an extra amount of money, $50 a week, to do social media for us. That includes Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. $50 a week for an hour's worth of work every day. That's it, 5 days a week. They agreed to it because that's what they want to do for the rest of their life. There are programs at UT for kids that do that. There are programs in high school for kids that want to do that. If we just opened up your mind and just picked the brains of everybody that work there, that are involved, that do these things, you can find people like me all the time. Every single one of I found my dog Daisy, purebred blood blue tick coonhound, walking down the street in Tennessee. 3 vets, no chip. 28 days I waited. I called every animal shelter and every police department within the area of Knoxville. Nobody claimed her after 28 days. Cool, she's mine. I pull in, I've got another rescue. He was in the back room at Northeast Animal Shelter in Massachusetts, Salem, Massachusetts. My wife and I walked back there, sat down with him. He growled at us, he snarled at us. He was scared as all hell. He didn't want to be there. He didn't know why his family, who had got him as a puppy at that same shelter, brought him a year later back to that shelter. Well, it was their irresponsibility. They never trained him. So when he, as a, he's a red-bone coonhound Rhodesian Ridgeback pit bull.
Oh, wow.
He is a 68-pound meat missile. He is my wife's protector, right? I don't care, like, even if he knows you, if you step aggressively to my wife, cackles up, sideways, teeth out, doesn't care. He's done it to her, he has done that to my father-in-law, okay? So my thought is that if we stop thinking like we're 20 years ago, just starting the shelter, and start picking the brains of everybody that's around you, you'll find that money. You'll find the people like me that will write those checks, that will pay for, you know, the difference of whatever the budget isn't covering for vetting, for spade and neutering. Allow people to fundraise for you. If they're donating under their name, great, but if they're doing Facebook fundraising,
And
fantastic.
this is a project that's overseen by the mayor and her
Right.
department, so you're right
Yeah.
there.
Well,
Offer your assistance.
Mayor has ears. And I'm sure it's things she's already working on. In the last, since I've been down in Knoxville for 2 years. So, you know, in 2 years, I've picked up 3 animals in Knoxville, you know. And it helps when you're friends with Natalie, because then they just show up at your house. So that's just my mind, you know, my thought. And, you know, I just wanted to put that out there in a positive. I can't really say plus or minus to anything anyone's doing because I'm not in their position. But I can say this is what I see from the outside coming in. And if we expand, you know, the mindset and pick the brains of people around us, you might be able to find a kid for $50 who would be willing to do 5 hours worth of work a week to do social media, everything.
All right,
That's
thank
cool.
you.
So.
3 minutes.
Won't be but a minute.
Okay.
I'm Kathy Turpin. I live on Mountain Road. And I just wanted to say, I've always worked great with Brian in the past. I don't understand and know everything that's going on, but I will tell you, out of my 10 barn cats that I have, 7 of them are ferals. They're the best barn cats I've ever had in my life. And just for the record, my cats the 2 cats that are in my home, when I put them in a carrier to take them to the vet, they're scared. So any cat that's out of its element, it's going to be scared. I mean, I'm just saying, you know, any cat that's going to go into the shelter, it's not going to normally be calm. Even if it's a surrendered pet, he's going to be big-eyed and scared in his cage. But I just want to tell you that the 7 ferals I have now, I've probably had 30 ferals in my lifetime, and they do make the best barn animals.
Thank you. We're going to take a 7-minute break.
Thank you.
call the meeting back to order. Next, we have status updates.
Okay, Pine Meadows Subdivision. I did distribute that to members of Operation Committee, and then I also included Commissioner Fritz. Did you all get your copy in your email? Yes, sir. This morning I copied Jay and Commissioner Fritz. Currently, right now, we are using the document. There are some decisions that, we've got some active court cases and
Mayor, would you mind
enforcement.
closing that door?
Oh,
please?
sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyhow, there are some options in there. Commissioner, I'll send it to the Anderson County TN.gov address. But we'll probably look at maybe triggering some of those decisions in a few months after some of the active enforcements move forward. Did it come through, or?
Still looking, I mean, never land. I've got, no, I didn't
Did,
get anything. Well,
did anyone else get it? Did you get it?
I've
You
got
got
a
it?
previous copy.
You didn't get anything this morning?
I certainly know about the report you're talking about. Terry, I think I got it today. I can't recall it. What time do you think it was? Was it really
It was like,
6:30 or something?
no, it was like 9 or 8:30, 9, maybe 10.
If you want to, we're going to take this back up again under
Okay.
Commissioner Wandale, so it gives time to look it up.
I don't see it on mine. If you can send
That's
me-
weird. Okay, when you go to take it back up, I'll go downstairs and hit the resend button.
But there's a lot of stuff going on in the meantime.
Yes.
You're specifically, Mr. Chairman, I believe, talking about the approval we did several months ago to do the civil engineering type studies, zoning studies
Yes.
of Pine Meadows and Claxton, and that's what you're sending us, and I'll take a look at that. But in the meantime, I know that zoning, Anderson County zoning is actively, in the law director and yourself, cleaning up properties. I think I saw some information from Danny Phillips today where one of the properties that burnt out was cleaned up. So looks like we're making progress on that front.
Yes, and Margie, she has this guidance document as well, and then also she's working with Chief Sexton, communicating with him regularly, and they're tag teaming kind of joint issues there as well.
Thank you.
The next update is the update on the county seal project. That idea came out of this committee and moved forward, and we went to Budget Committee with an amendment. We did put a committee together. The committee made the decision to go out to RFP and solicit bids for both logo design and the county seal. And so after choosing the top three, well, we scored the respondents. We chose the top 3 for interviews. After doing the interviews, part of the scoring was to score them for the Q&A during that particular presentation. And then we are ready to award a bid, and it's not only the low bid financially, but it was the highest scoring bid for other factors. And so I just wanted to brief you on that, let you know that it's winding its way through Budget Committee, and how the process would work is that committee, which is myself, Zach in Archives, Commissioner Yeager, Commissioner Meredith from the Chamber, Stephanie Wells from Tourism. We will meet and do some discussion with the vendor. They will create 9 to 12 first draft logo samples. They'll present them to the committee. We'll do some round tabling there. I just wanted to assure you all that as we went through that process, this body in full commission, this wouldn't be, I mean, we'll make some recommendations for choices, but we won't, hey, this is it, and then ta-da, I'll come to you all and announce it. You will be a part of that process. I just wanted to assure you of that. The next piece of information on there, I'll be real quick about this. This is something really awesome that the state of Tennessee has done. It's a length of service program for volunteer first responders. And just real quickly, especially for other folks at home, we will have to develop criteria for awarding the contributions, but the individual must be a bona fide volunteer who receives no compensation for the services and receives only reasonable reimbursement or normal stipends, or nominal, I'm sorry. What we will be required to do from a county government standpoint is local governments and tax-exempt organizations electing to participate will be assessed a one-time fee of $500 to set this up, and then establish a program and a $250 annual maintenance fee. Then our entity can participate and specify an annual contribution for each eligible volunteer from anywhere from $200 to up to $6,000. The state of Tennessee has a great investment program. That money will be invested with them. Then any contributions or associated investment earnings would be distributed to the volunteers upon attainment of age 45 after the completion of 5 years of eligible volunteer service. The contributions made to the account are not considered wages, therefore are not subject to FICA or any other payroll taxes. When a volunteer reaches an entitlement age and receives a distribution from their investment account, the benefit payment is subject to ordinary income tax. So this is a great opportunity for, I guess, really addressing one of the issues that you've heard from a lot of our agencies, which is the recruitment of volunteers and retaining of volunteers. So this is something Anderson County could look at. I think it would be wise to look at. And I just did an approximate number of volunteers in our agencies. We have approximately, and this is based on a form they fill out, I tabulated 141. So if we did, say, the minimum contribution on an annual basis, that would be $28,950. If we did the max, it would be, based on that number, $846,000. So that is something I guess we would want to take up in Budget Committee unless you wanted to address it sooner. But I just wanted to brief you all on that. Commissioner Val is chairman of Fire Commission, and we are going to have a phone call with the folks from the Tennessee Treasury. It's actually Justin Ball. He represents East Tennessee. We're going to have a phone call to make sure that there are no other details that we don't know about that we can report back to you. And he and Chairman Val can report to Fire Commission. That's all on that, unless you have any questions. Okay, next item, the EPA Grant Award. So I really don't have anything else to add other than this is Anderson County and Scott County. We had our first introductory phone call. We have another phone call next week with the contractor that has been chosen by EPA that will be working on the financial impact. If you all do know of any, I had a meeting with some folks this morning that have an interest in the rail line. If you all know of any potential economic impact, if it were either a trail or remained an active rail line or a tourist line, let me know and I will plug you in with the contractor for the EPA, and they're going to have a pretty ambitious schedule in getting that analysis done. So that's a really exciting, excellent, exciting opportunity. The next is an update on the fire truck analysis and other data. So just a couple of things on this, and I don't want to speak for, maybe Jay can speak on this. The Sourcewell contract for the bulk purchase is a gray area. So Robbie and I have spoken. We also spoke with Chairman Val and Catherine in purchasing. Catherine said she could have done, at this time, 3 bids over. So what I'm recommending is that you go ahead and allow Catherine to issue an RFP. It would allow peers to submit the numbers they have submitted, and then also look at 1 truck, 3, 5, and then the whole bulk. And that would give this body the information you need to be able to make a decision, and it would address any gray area with the Sourcewell contract. The gray area is an issue where there isn't a publication, and we actually discussed this on another issue with computers with the auditors this year at our exit interview when it comes to purchasing computer equipment for Anderson County. If there is not a list that is published, it creates a concern for the auditors. So if you go ahead and pull the trigger on it, we can still meet all January deadlines, in my opinion, but, and Catherine does have a due date of January 20th, so it would be good to go ahead and, if you want to do that, handle it that way. But that's just my recommendation. You certainly can do anything you want. A couple of other things that I did want to distribute is, and I'll get this in the hands of others, I've done some research for some of the other departments in other states and how, or other counties and municipalities and what they do. So for instance, here's one, and I'll share this with you. This is Carroll County Emergency Services, and they have a fire apparatus replacement plan. And what they do is, and this would be a benefit if the county did this for our volunteer fire departments and for the citizens. They go through and do an asset inventory. And Commissioner Wandell, this kind of goes to your point of, well, if we get a new truck, do they have a station? And it measures each agency, what are their challenges? What are their needs? Is it equipment? Is it truck? Is it facility? Is it training? And then they put it together, and let me just go ahead and hand this out to you. So the one document is, the finance office pulled, when we started the fire truck resolution, 2006, 2007, when did they get, what was the amount they got? And then also the purpose is to look at how long has it been since they have made a purchase? One of the things that I'm working on getting for that particular list as well is, if we're going to look at the particular piece of equipment, we need the manufacturer date, and then we also need the delivery date. And you'll see there, 2006, 2007 was Briceville, so that's been quite a few years. If you look at the NFPA fire standards, I think they're working on a new document, and I would defer to the chief on this, or Jim on this particular issue, but in the appendix that, there's an appendix D1, 2, and 3, they deal with this particular issue. They talk about any vehicle over 15 years in that particular document needs to go to reserve. But of course, you have some agencies that have higher use. So, for instance, a city of Oak Ridge would probably be 8 or 9 year. It would only be frontline. And so these are some things that, you know, we're having so much discussion about this. This may be an opportunity for us to take a large look. Commissioner Yeager did the nonprofits donation policy that has a lot of metrics in there and a lot of ways for the county to make a decision. The fire departments aren't included in there because we want to treat them differently. They're not just a nonprofit, they're providing a service, dedicated fire response in the case of an emergency. But we do, if you look at some of these apparatus replacement documents that I've put in front of you, or replacement plan and asset, it may be different for each agency. And it might be worth us taking the time as we go through this and as we look at the fire truck resolution to also say, what is the full scope of needs? And even measure it against what are we providing. So for instance, Briceville, they purchased their land, but some we've given, some have a building and land. And those are things that you all as the deciding body probably want to take a look at and maybe set your priorities for what you see in your particular district, because pretty much the fire districts are lined up with your districts and what you want to see in that particular regard. So that's what I have on that. I know our last motion was for me to work with the chief on the resolution. I haven't done that yet, so my goal was to reach out and try to schedule something next week or the week after Christmas or the first week in January to go over that resolution. So that's that, unless you have any questions. And both of these are really good documents if you have, I know it's the holidays, but if you do find yourself with some downtime, they're really good. The last couple of items that I have, and then I'll hush for the night, comprehensive parks plan. We really need to try to get some more input. Stephanie Wells and Tourism is pushing out, doing some more outreach on the Facebook sponsored section. We do have the link on the county website, and this document will be used to set priorities, and if we want to go for grants and we want to get funding for the parks, this kind of survey response, and this is what the community likes, or this is what the community is missing, if we could get some more feedback, it would be great. So if you would push that out to your districts and the people in your districts. One of the things initially, Lowe's Design put in there a mandatory email address, and I did question that and ask if that could be a barrier to people providing a response, because some people want to just provide an anonymous response. They might feel like their response is critical. And so they did take that mandatory email out of there, so you can share that with your folks as well.
I think Commissioner Yeager's got a question.
No, when she finishes.
Okay.
Okay. And then the last, just as a quick update, the TDEC testing at Kids Palace Playground, that took place all day on December the 1st. I did get an email back from TDEC. They said the data is starting to trickle in. I was going to read that to you. They believed some of the data takes a little bit longer, takes over 21 days to get back from the labs. So after the holidays, we should have some type of preliminary assessment coming in pretty quickly. There were 16 different people on site. Folks from the Tennessee Department of Health, several folks from there, medical director, from the Tennessee Department of Health Emergency Management. We had all kinds of TDEC folks. TVA did ask as well that they be allowed to do, I guess it's known as, and Jay would probably know a bit more about this, split sampling. So they're basically, they want to do their own lab analysis to measure up against, I guess they want to be in a position of confirming or objecting to, I guess is also a possibility, whatever results that TDEC finds. They did add some additional testing locations there. They tested sand, they tested mulch, they did get from Ben exactly where we obtain our mulch, Ben at the parks. They tested by the bridge. They made special emphasis on the areas where the children play most often and where there are exposed areas. It was very intensive. So I'm very excited about that. Originally, they said quickly. Then on a subsequent meeting, they said, Mayor, it could be 6 months or even longer. And then the next thing you know, I guess internally, they made a goal and they got it done. So right after Thanksgiving. So that'll give us results for our community a lot quicker.
Excellent.
And that's all I have.
Commissioner Yeager.
Sure, thank you. I got two things, I'll take them separately. I just want to thank you and the sheriff for the new entrance. I'm not in every day, obviously, but it just looks like it's working splendidly. And I just want to see if the sheriff will come up and give his input on how it's going from his point of view. And 118A, so I want to thank you for both those.
Well, thank you all. We're still going to do a little bit more on the, I guess, the aesthetics of the interior, but the priority right now is on making sure the sheriff and his team are operational and fully functional and operational and efficient for the citizens and the staff. So that's been the priority right now, but we'll spruce it up a little bit more for you all.
Jerry, I really like that contract you got on that job. Excellent work. They cleaned their workstation every day when they left, and let's keep them in mind for other projects. That's probably the best I've ever seen here.
So regarding the one exit, one entrance, we're pretty thrilled with it at the Sheriff's Department. We had a few growing pains, but honestly, they've not lasted near as long as we had anticipated. We knew it would take some time for people to get accustomed to it. But folks have actually, we've heard definitely far more positive things than we have negative. The only issue that we've had is we have some attorneys who've practiced law here for a long, long time that they have a little bit of an issue with it. And they've inquired about Knox County system, where you come and apply for a badge and you get to go through basically unchecked. Now, my current position on that is I'm not interested in that.
I'm happy to hear that.
Now, we might be able to work something out where we can do more of some kind of express lane. But I think Judge Don Layton said it best in one of the meetings. He said he didn't trust attorneys. He wanted them to go through the line. So we're thrilled with it, and our staff seems to like it. And of course, we're still working out some kinks. Some of the concerns some of our judges had was not having someone when you get off the third floor. But that whole thing about roaming, because now we are roaming 3 floors as opposed to 1, but we're going to use some common sense on that, and clearly we're going to put our resources where the crowds are. but yet not neglect any particular floor. So when it's busy up here, particularly when we have orders of protection, things like that, we're going to make sure that we have a heavy presence here on the third floor.
You selected a good group of deputies to do that, suit personality.
Yeah,
I think that means a lot when folks come in, they greet them with, you know, very excellent manners, and with respect, and even threw Commissioner Yeager up against the wall and shook him.
We requested that.
They were very nice to him.
Yes.
Excellent group of deputies.
Yeah, you know, Lieutenant Owens is the one that oversees that, and he's done a really good job for us. He has a real knack for attention to detail. And one of the things, particularly when it comes to, you know, the schools and our courthouse and court security, we like to view it as kind of a customer service type thing as well, as outside of just our main mission of protection and security. We want to make sure that we represent not just the sheriff's office, but the county as a whole very well.
Question.
Yes.
So is this going to be manned? Is that a manned station whenever the courthouse is being utilized?
You know, I don't know right off the top of my head, but like, for example, tonight, of course, we had folks down there. I would think so, but I think it really would just depend. If it's a, you know, like, for example, and this is kind of a poor example because I'm about to use something from the sheriff's office, but, you know, occasionally we'll borrow a courtroom to have a big meeting, right? Well, we're not going to ask our deputies to be down there when we got a bunch of sheriff's deputies coming in, right? It'd be like the worst night ever to come into the courthouse. However, I know periodically other groups tend to hold things, whether it be,
Correct.
you know, whoever.
Right.
And we'll kind of look at that from a case-by-case basis, unless Steve has already developed some plan that I'm not remembering or unaware of at the moment. But particularly if we have large crowds, I think it would be wise.
Well, I mean, my only concern is, as an example, with fire commission, everyone comes up to the third floor and they're meeting on the third floor. I'm oblivious as to what's going on out there right now, if anything.
Right.
So that's, you know, it's just an area of concern and safety.
No, absolutely.
Not only for today, but anything that may occur as a result, say tomorrow.
Yeah, so also for me personally, I think we have to look too at the volatility of whatever's happening in the meeting, right? I mean, if it's a hot topic in the community or something, we for sure want to have a presence here. If it's you know a basket weaving committee that has borrowed one of our rooms, maybe not so much. But more importantly, though, we want to make sure we don't have an outside group. And I know it's kind of rare that we would have that's not actually got government business here, but it does happen sometimes who are loosely affiliated with government. But we want to make sure we don't have people wandering the halls. So my guess is more times than not we're going to have someone here because it's ripe for the opportunity, you know, for somebody to get in and do whatever. And 118 is awesome, by the way. I had an opportunity to utilize it a couple of times.
The officer who frisked me today, he said he's confiscated a number of knives.
Mm-hmm.
What's the procedure? Do they let them take it back out to the car if they want to, or
they have that
what
option? That's always been the option, even on third floor. We saw that quite a bit.
Okay.
So back when we had the entrance here only on the third floor, if they showed up with a knife, almost always you got it in the tray, right? And we would say, hey, you need to take that back or you're going to lose it. And so most of them would take it back to the car. Then they got into the habit of going down to the first floor and asking the receptionist to hold their knife.
Okay.
That's why all that stopped, why you can't leave anything. However, if some people just say, you can have it, right? And we end up with a bucket full of knives, honestly. And truthfully, it's an astronomical number.
Wow.
It's in the hundreds that we end up with at the end of the year. And truthfully, most of them are not of any real value that's why people just abandon it, you know. But yeah, we collect them and dispose of them.
Okay, appreciate the update.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Jay, till the mayor comes back.
The mayor kind of got into this, and I'll talk a little bit about the fire truck resolution, and it's a work in progress. You had the one resolution that was floating around, and we had the fire chiefs and the fire commission take a look at it. They came back with some ideas, which I think are pretty good. But a couple big issues we need to think about, and of course, we've got some time. It looks like the mayor wants to put this out for bid, and we do have a problem with that Sourcewell contract. It's the manufacturer's suggested retail price. It's got a discount off that. Well, their MSRP is not established anywhere, and we've talked with the auditors on another issue, just very similar to this, and they don't like that. They need some kind of set manufacturer suggested retail price somewhere. But anyway, that's where we're at, and if we choose to go ahead and bid it, then I'm hoping we can stay within the timeline. So this is not something we need to do tonight, but I want you to be aware of it. I've asked for comments from everybody. Both resolutions have a comments page on the back. Please get those to me, or just shoot me an email. But the Fire Commission did do an excellent job and made a couple recommendations, and I sent them to you in an email. And a couple things they wanted to do is change the order of the original one, and starting back to going with Briceville. I think this is a little bit more fair the way this order is. And the reason being, you say, okay, what if we do 11 bulk purchase of 11 at one time? What does it matter? Well, they come in at a staggered amount. One comes in, two comes in, three comes in. So we want the department that has the most need to get it first. So we changed that order by recommendation of the fire chiefs. And then the next thing we did was, this is a big issue, and I want you to be aware of that. We had it in our original resolution as the vehicle be titled in the county's name. They would like for the vehicle to be titled in the fire department's name. And the reason being, there's apparently an issue with getting insurance when it being in the county's name. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but if we did title it in the fire department's name, and really Oak Ridge and the city of Clinton have a big issue with this, I do want a release and hold harmless agreement for the county embodied in there that they have to sign, that the county has absolutely no liability whatsoever here. And if you think about it, I'm really not sure what we would want to do with a fire truck that's 15, 20 years old. I don't think we're in that business right now, and we want these departments to actually be able to have this and get the life as long as they possibly can. We know if it's in their hands, they're going to do the maintenance, do a good job with it, keep it up. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but right now I've changed that to titling the vehicle in the fire department's name, contingent upon a release, hold harmless, and indemnification agreement being signed with these fire departments when they take possession. The fire departments will, at that point, the same issues, got a secondary issue. They'll be responsible for obtaining insurance, and as we had it before, they'd list Anderson County as a additional insured party. If we get a release and hold harmless and indemnification agreement signed, I don't have a problem with that whatsoever, as not being, and especially if they're the owners and not us. Then we had Section 7. If you remember, there's been an issue of whether or not these vehicles will respond to, the fire departments will respond to the request for first responders, request for emergencies, mutual aid, and they'd like that to read as outlined by the Tennessee state guidelines. I don't have a problem with that. That's what they're accustomed to dealing with. They know when they have to respond and when they don't have to respond, and the way it works around here, they all come and help everybody out. So that's not a problem with me. Then the other one, Section 8 had there that they had to respond to these mutual aids calls. Well, I can see this happening in the city of Clinton. I can see this happening in the city of Oak Ridge and Norris. They want their citizens in those counties that are being, those cities that are being taxed already for fire departments there, they want them to have priority calls. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. And so they've just added the phrase, if available. And they'll come when requested by Nathan or whatever other entity, another fire department needs them, when they're available. And in fact, they want to give their citizens first priority to the calls. And that's fine with me. There's no problem there. And then Section 9 was that training section. And what they wanted to add to that was firefighters to adhere to the Tennessee Code annotated 424.112, and that's the basic minimum training that they have to have. And that's acceptable. As long as everyone has that basic minimum training, we're good. They did add something that I thought was excellent. I think, Mayor, this was your idea, and they agreed to it, was go back to that old provision that we had in the, you all remember the little dilemma we had with one of the fire departments wanting to charge for services. What was that, 2012, 2013, something like that. We added at that time in our fire truck resolution that you would not receive a fire truck if you were receiving an annual donation or a subscription service. And we've stuck that back in there. So if you take a free fire truck from the county, then you're not going to be charging. Now, that does not exempt the municipal authorities like Clinton, Oak Ridge, Norris, that they're funded by taxation. That's fine. As long as that's in place, we don't have a problem with that. But anyway, this is a work in progress document. We still have some steps to do. If anybody has anything they want me to change on here, and remember, one of the biggest issues I want you to contemplate is whether the county is going to own this vehicle or whether the volunteer fire departments. That kind of turns a lot of the insurance issues, the titling issues, and liability issues. But that's one of the concerns, and I think one of the chiefs told me that really, and this mirrors what the mayor said earlier, that we're looking at about a 15-year lifespan on one of these things. So this will hopefully take care of some of their concerns for 15 to 20 years. And I kept thinking about some of the vehicles that Andersonville has put on the road and Briceville's put on the road. That would be considered a new vehicle at 15 years. And if it wasn't for the city of Oak Ridge and some other people coming up and donating well-maintained engines, we'd be we'd have problems out there in those locales. But anyway, again, I welcome your responses. I do appreciate the Fire Commission. They came up with some great ideas that I'm sure you'll accept. But be thinking about those hot-button issues and the touchy issues. And if you have any recommendations, just shoot me an email, and we'll put it all together. And we'll have, when we get ready to do this, I'm sure we're leaning towards bidding it again. Then we'll put it all together in a format that we can approve and have a new fire truck resolution that we can all live by for several years. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything that's going to be incorporated in this with regards to the municipalities giving up vehicles, such as we've gotten fire trucks from the city of Oak Ridge and so forth?
They've always just been so kind and generous as a volunteer. They've got an extra engine. I don't want to put a mandate in this agreement, but we're certainly willing to take any vehicle that Oak Ridge has in Clinton. They do a fantastic job of.
But I mean, to put it in there that it's up to the fire commission, or that it's up to the Fire Chiefs Association to decide which volunteer fire department receives a vehicle. Let them figure out where it needs to go. Because like you said, you've got vehicles that are 20+ years old at some of these stations. And if one of the municipalities is willing to give up a vehicle and donate it to the county, let them decide where it needs to be placed.
Certainly, if they don't have a problem with that, we don't. And the Fire Commission is certainly the entity that would be most knowledgeable about that. One other issue I want to talk to you about.
I'm just asking that it be put in writing so there's a clear understanding.
What if the, I'm just playing devil's advocate, what if the donating agency doesn't want it to go to where the fire commission wants it to go?
Why would they not want it to go?
I don't know, but I'm
Where
just
the
saying,
fire
what if
chiefs
they,
agreed
we
to.
say, hey, look, the fire commission says, I think it's better, it goes to Briceville, and they say, no, we want to go to Andersonville, we think the need's greater there.
Who, that, if the city of Oak Ridge thought it would?
Right.
It-
Well, whatever donating entity it is, it's usually a municipality.
I just can't imagine them doing that.
I
But
hope-
that's why I'm saying, if it were in writing, that it's up to this particular body to decide the
Okay.
fate of that contribution.
I don't have a bit of problem with that, Commissioner, as long as all the other departments buy into that, and that's fine. I'm just so glad to get those engines.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And you worked hard on it before, and
Yeah.
I got a couple of them in service, and that was fantastic. It really, I hate to call it a Band-Aid, but it really helped patch things up until we could get this going. One other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I got this from a county commissioner, it says, what would prevent one of the volunteer fire departments or a municipal fire department from selling this vehicle? I don't think they will, just like the last question, but I can easily add a couple provisions in here that commissioner must approve any sale or transfer of this vehicle, and any attempt to sell is a default of the terms of the fire truck resolution, and it's immediately subject to repossession, just like I've got another one in
But
here
if
that.
you've got a fire truck that's 20 years old, why should it be up to county commission as to allowing
Well,
that department to sell something that's of no use to them and/or of the other departments, whether they're bartering and trading amongst each other or?
This is a concern that was brought to me by a county commissioner, and my response was, if that is a concern to you and county commission, this is how I would fix it. And I hope it never occurs,
Right.
but I guess it's, one county commissioner thought of it, and he had enough time to send me in a comment, and I said, well, we can always add a provision that said that any attempt to sell would be a breach of the agreement. It would default back to the county without any additional further legal process. And we would, or county commission must approve any sale or transfer. I'm thinking if we don't own the vehicle, it becomes, they're surplus.
That's what I was gonna
And
say.
so we're back to that whole issue. Do you want to title it in the county's name or
Right.
title it in the fire department's
It
name?
makes complete
That-
sense to allow the fire department to determine the fate of that vehicle when they're the ones that are insuring it, they're housing it, they're repairing it.
I agree with you, but remember, it goes to the bigger issue. Is the county gonna own this vehicle, or is the actual fire department's gonna own it? As I first stood up here tonight, I said there's several sub-issues that come off this one big
Right.
issue. Is the Anderson County gonna own this vehicle, or are we just gonna give it to these fire departments? Then a lot of these other things, whatever we decide there, fall in line quite neatly, and some of them become non-issues. Okay, any questions about what we've got here? Again, I appreciate the Fire Commission for what they've done, the Finance Committee. We've got time to work on this. As you think of things, let's get a good resolution in place. And it's, with as many things on my mind, I look over stuff. And the people that, like the Fire Commission, that have the hands-on and are working with this daily, really helps when they give me input on this stuff. So that's where we're at, and thank you for your time tonight. That's all I have. Commissioner?
Thank you. Jay, I guess on the mutual aid part of it, you know, I don't know what the process is there. I mean, currently.
It's currently, Chief, correct me, it's pretty much all gone to state guidelines on mutual aid. Now, it's not like the old, we used to, you probably remember the days we used to put mutual aid independent agreements together with other entities, other municipalities, other counties that were surrounding. Now, the General Assembly said, hey, look, let's put a law in place. There's state mutual aid guidelines, and that's what they're all subscribing to, and that's fine with me.
So in that state mutual aid guideline, I mean, what's the process? Because, and I know everybody's got situations, but, you know, I can recall in the last few months, fire in Briceville. that, Lake City or Rocky Top did not get to respond to. For me, those are citizens that need to be serviced. Why Rocky Top didn't respond, I have no idea. But when Claxton drives all the way over there, or whoever drives all the way over there, it's a loss. And so I guess my question is, what makes the mutual aid kick in? Because I don't get the impression there's a lot of mutual aid going on from the municipalities. I may be wrong, but I don't get the sense that the municipalities hear a call come across 911 and then they immediately respond to assist or even inquire to assist. And what I heard you say, and I'm not saying you are making this mandate, but what I heard you say is, and I understand they're going to serve their people first, but we're all people. And when there's a fire, somebody needs to respond. Then the need is right then. I mean, I understand. So it sounded like to me, it's kind of like, well, we're going to take care of our people in the municipality, and we don't really want to respond because we might not be able to service the people in our municipality. And it makes me wonder, well, that doesn't seem reasonable to me.
That doesn't sound reasonable to me either, Commissioner.
Yeah.
So I think if they're busy, I understand.
Yeah.
But if they're just saying, hey, let's stay on standby in case something
Well,
happens.
I've heard stories. I mean, I've heard stories like, well, they can't send anybody, they have to call them in. So the people on active duty at a municipality can't go service the fire. They have to call in somebody else who has to jump in their vehicle, then come to the station, then they get in the vehicle and then respond, which takes a lot of time, and I don't understand that.
It sure does.
So I guess what I'm asking is, I'd like to understand what is the actual current mutual aid, whether it's the state process, our process. I'd like to know how that exactly works.
I will be glad to get you a copy of that, get you a copy of the statutes on point, and I'll send it to you with what I know about it and what Kevin Lauer, who used to work with CTAS, told me about it. But I think the problem that I've heard about has been Rocky Top. And it's not that they don't want to help. What happens is they have one on duty and they have to call in another one to fight a fire. It seems like that's been the issue I've heard about before. And but I certainly understand Clinton and Oak Ridge. Those fire departments are funded by their taxpayers, and they may be busy on a call, but as they tell us, we're going to respond anytime we possibly can. If we're not busy on a call inside the city limits, then we're going to respond. And I've not heard of a problem there, but I'm not on top of this issue as much as I should. But I have heard of the issue at Rocky Top, and I believe that's a manpower issue. Or back in the day when I used to deal with it, there'd be one fireman on duty, and they'd have to call one additional fireman in to fight a fire if they did have a fire. So that may be what's going on there. They don't normally have a couple of people on duty. That used to be their scheduling, but I'll check into that for you. Is that where you've heard the issue coming about?
No, I mean, I'm not just picking on Rocky Top.
Well, nobody's picking on them.
No. I mean, for instance, in Claxton, if we have an issue, I've known of Oak Ridge come and help. I mean, whether it's a accident just across the bridge, I guess for me, I don't understand, and you're going to get it to me. I
Yes,
just
sir.
would like to think there's a process in place when the call goes out and nobody's responded from the volunteer fire departments, that the cities immediately jump in and say, hey, let's go help because of our mutual aid. We're going to help. I understand they got their tax dollars and they got to represent their people, but quite frankly, most of the municipalities have more people on staff than the rural fire departments do during the day. So, I don't know how that process works, but
I think we're both going to find out. I'll dig into it deep. I'll get you the documents, and I'll call the subject matter experts that I can.
And at the same token, we are giving a fire truck to the municipality, so it's not like it's
Right.
a one-way street.
Well, I
It's-
understand.
So, I'd like to see that I think that's where we could use some assistance from the municipalities when we can't get to it. As a county volunteer fire department, we just don't have the people and the
That
resources
sounds
to get to
reasonable.
it.
Chief wants to talk about this.
Yes,
Ambria, it used to be Phillips, what's the new? Crow. She just got married, congratulations.
Yay.
But anyway, please respond to this. No, I want you to. You're much more knowledgeable than I am.
I reached out to city manager too at Rocky Top, trying to tune in.
So we can email you to, there's dispatch protocols, and we're actually in the process, Fire Commission, of working on those and changing that with dispatch, certain different things. It's in the process of being worked on, going back and forth between Fire Commission and dispatch. So in the county, for the county volunteer fire departments, from the hours of 5A to 5P, there is a county all-tone for structure fires. So what that means is if there is a structure fire Monday through Friday during your mainly where people are at work Monday through Friday, those business hours, there is what we call a county all-tone. So all volunteer fire departments are toned. If there is a fire in Andersonville, all of the county departments are toned. Municipalities are not included in that. If for some reason, this does not happen, but if for some reason after 2 tone-outs of the entire county there was no response, then they would call the closest municipality. If I'm not mistaken, that is how that process works. I would have to actually look through those protocols to get you that exactly, because that doesn't happen. Structure fires don't go unmissed. You may not have, say, Briceville responding to Briceville's call, but you may have Marlow or Medford or Claxton or a combination thereof, or Andersonville going to that department. I know in the past there has been, I can think of one instance where there were Andersonville people at an Andersonville fire, but there were no Andersonville apparatus, but there were, apparatus from other departments. And people in the community may
Right.
complain about that, but they don't realize how our county all-tone system,
Right.
works in that nature. So municipalities will come if called, but they're not called right off the bat unless there is no response after, I believe it's 2 tone-outs for the volunteer departments.
And that sounds like what's happening. But I guess my problem is in Rocky Top, because that's the only situation I knew of. After 2 tone-outs, okay, so it didn't go to 2 because Claxton responded. Well, the house burned down before Claxton got there. So, I guess my crazy thought is, why wouldn't the tone go out immediately to the municipality where it's located? What's the problem? Why not send it out to the municipality? If it's in Rocky Top, why not? Why doesn't Rocky Top get that tone immediately along with the volunteer fire departments?
I see what you're saying.
I see what you're saying, and I think that,
Because I imagine they're gonna talk to each other, after that goes out. But if they're not getting toned and they're not being told that there's a fire, then you can't really question why a municipality didn't respond.
the municipality will only respond if they're requested to respond.
Requested by who?
It depends on the situation. If say I had a fire in Andersonville tonight and I needed extra water and I wanted Clinton's 3,000 gallon, tanker, I can call and ask, or I can ask dispatch who, will relay that over, and they will, ask them to respond. But it depends on your time frame. When did the fire occur? What the exact circumstances are before that municipality is requested. Briceville may request them because they are the closest department, but again, like I think has been brought up with the one man on shift manpower issue, you're mainly getting people responding from home, when you call Rocky Top, other than just the one person who is on shift, just like you would any other volunteer department.
Sounds like it's being worked on. It's just always fascinated me, because I now sit around and listen to these tones go off, and I hear no coverage a lot of times, and I just wonder, what do we need to do as a county to be more proactive to make sure that all calls are addressed? We can't just let stuff, but it sounds like you're working on it, and, I feel like everyone's bought in. If municipalities and rural are going to get trucks, they all should work together, and they all should be toned at the same time. If there's a fire in Oak Ridge, to me, Oak Ridge should be notified, and Claxton and whoever should be notified if they need help, and that kind of thing. That's just the way I see it. But I'm not a firefighter. So yeah, that helps. I just
So Monday through Friday, there's an automatic thing there because that is when you have your less response. But, you know, if a fire comes out tonight in Andersonville, we always need more help. Everybody always needs more help. You know, we're not like Knoxville where you have 25 people show up
if
and
you
you can
need
set off
help,
multiple alarms. We ask for it. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
We
but-
ask for
But if
it.
you need the help, you have to go back to dispatch. Then dispatch has to go back and ask and get, and I don't know who they call. Do they send a tone out to the, or do they call somebody, or how's that work?
It depends on who we're asking for. So if I had a structure fire come out in Andersonville tonight, I'm going to ask for a working fire protocol, and that's going to get me an ambulance coming, that gets me utilities coming. And then, depending on the information coming in, and that's why it's not an automatic thing, because it depends. I mean, I could have a little bitty car fire, I could have a shed fire, I could have one of my Claytons could be on fire. You know, it really just depends, and all of those things require the responding officer or the chief
Communication,
to make those decisions, you know, as you roll through. Now, a lot of times, like, for instance, if I had a residential fire come through tonight, I'm going to go ahead and ask for Claxton for manpower and a tanker, and I'm probably going to ask Medford for the same, and I'm going to get them coming my way. And then if I get there and realize I don't need them, then I can cancel them, but I already have them coming. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, and it's hard to just automatically automate it, I guess.
The thing I do know is that all the volunteer fire departments do cover each other.
Yeah.
And they do
Yes.
work extremely well together. And when they don't have the coverage in an area, the others seem to pick up and help out. So I just never hear of any municipalities assisting. I don't ever hear that.
Well, I can give you an example. The other day, we had a turbo blue on an 18-wheeler on the interstate, and Clinton happened to be in the area, and I didn't know that at the time. Dispatch said, hey, do you want me to get a hold of Clinton? I'm like, no, I'm already at the station. I'll be there in just a minute. There's no need to bring them all the way from Clinton up, but they were actually already up on the interstate end, and so they went ahead and interceded there. They started working on it. When I got there, I relieved them, and they went on back, went back on, their way. So it does happen. You just may not hear about it,
Excellent. That's
as
good.
much. And I
That's
just
good to know.
had Claxton and Medford on standby for us. We had a tanker with an issue that was out since wee hours Thursday night. And so I had Claxton and Medford on standby for us, which we're going to call them anyway, but I made sure Dusty and then Medford also knew that we were going to be calling if we needed water. But we got our tanker back now, so we're good.
So I had a few questions, Jay, on the.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief, for all that information. That's helpful. So, this bulk purchase of fire trucks, we've been talking about it for how long?
A while.
So it sounds like to me, what I'm hearing is that the bulk purchase is kind of going to be placed on a slow-down process now, when it was in a hurry process before. And I understand it's got to go to bids and meet certain criteria and all this kind of good stuff, but I guess my question is, what happened? What happened, 4 months ago when the idea was brought to us to hurry up and let's get this done so we could save all this money before the prices go up in January, to now we're at a position of, hey, well, let's just go see if we can put it out for bids to everybody because by law we're required. I guess my question is, who didn't know that 4 months ago?
Well, I think I'm talking about what I know from Catherine Ashmiri and Robbie. Was we were working off a Sourcewell, that's a fire truck manufacturer contract, and they gave us a certain Mayor, correct me when I get wrong, I think it was sometime in January that we had to make the purchase. Well, when Catherine started looking at it, it was a discount on the manufacturer's suggested retail price. That sounds pretty simple. The problem was, most of these are customized, and there is no manufactured suggested retail price. We had an issue that popped up 2 or 3 years with the auditor on a very similar situation where it was a discount on a manufacturer's suggested retail price that was not set in stone. There was no way to verify what the manufacturer's suggested retail price was, other than the fact that, hey, the company that makes these fire trucks says, well, it's about this. We couldn't verify it. We've got to know. That's very easy on a car when we're buying police cars, or we know what that MSRP is. This is a situation where there was no way to verify what the MSRP was, and the company themselves, and we wanted to do it, but the company themselves are saying, well, it varies depending on what you get on the truck. And that's where we're at with it now. We don't want to get an audit finding because the auditors have been hypersensitive over these situations. And as the way I understand it, we can move on it right now, Mayor. Is that what you just said? And still meet the same time deadline, not stretch it out. So I think it was, Chief, what was that date in January? 14th. The 14th? What are we looking at, Mayor? Catherine moves on this. You asked for a recommendation at 9 on bidding.
Well,
We know who the players are. It's a very limited pool of players.
yeah, I don't know, I have to, I mean, I know she said, I know when we were talking with Chairman Val, she said, I could have already done this 3
Right.
months over, and we can do it quickly, so I don't have an exact date. I did
So
know
what do you
that-
need? Just authorization from purchasing committee to go ahead and put this thing out for
I
bid?
mean, even if this committee, if somebody just.
County
say-
commission could
I mean,
easily say
We
that.
don't even have to wait for full commission, if somebody will just give authorization, I just don't wanna do it on my own.
Can we hold up? We got a Pierce.
Hold on. They have the floor. Go ahead, Mayor. Jay.
I don't even know where I was.
Just the authority, just put it
Oh,
out for
yeah.
bid. What does Catherine and Robbie need
I
to
mean,
go ahead
we
and start
can
the
do that.
process?
We can do it tomorrow. I mean, I would just personally want you all to say, go ahead, at least somebody on commission to say, yeah, pull a trigger. I mean, it doesn't commit you to anything, but it does enable you to get the pricing.
I guess my confusion is, did this go through finance? Was there discussions about, I thought this had been through finance, and I may be wrong. I thought discussion was made in finance, or maybe it was budget. I thought all this stuff had been discussed, is what I'm trying to say.
I never offered personally an official proposal to be voted on. So if you look back, I just was discussing in concept, okay, here is a spreadsheet based on Pierce's pricing. If you did this many vehicles, I mean, cause Mr. Bell sent me, okay, if you get this many to this many, here's what we could do. You're gonna get a discount. If you bought over 9, you're going to get a discount. But all of this was only, in each committee, I just said, this is a discussion idea. I'm not here with a budget amendment. I'm not here with a financing plan. It's just an idea to take advantage of bulk purchasing. So that's how that kind of
Okay. What,
got off the ground.
what's the difference between fire trucks and, say, upgrades to buildings? I mean, we had a company we did business with to do upgrades to buildings, plumbing, heat and air, whatever you want to call it, system upgrades. We didn't go out for bids. We took that vendor and they said, hey, we can do these wonderful things for you. And we said, sounds good. And we did it and they did wonderful things for us. I guess I'm trying to understand what's the difference between that situation and a fire truck company wanting to.
I'll be glad to help you with that. I guess you're referring to ESG and Johnson Controls, those projects.
Yes.
There's a state statute on point that allows us to go ahead and without bidding, to enter into contracts for energy efficiency upgrades. And we've utilized it several times in the past. I think the first time I remember it was the windows in the courthouse, and then Johnson Controls, and then I think school systems used ESG. We've used them. I think the school systems on maybe their second or third one. But those specifically by statute do not have to be bid.
Thank you. That's good information for me. I love this information you provided tonight, Mayor. I haven't obviously read through it all. I'll certainly look through it. I'll look through the resolutions. Mr. Chairman, I just felt like we were at a point where the resolution was ready for us to take action. We were going to either vote it up, vote it down, throw it to full commission for a vote, and move forward. I guess I'm getting a different sense before I make a motion. I want the other commissioners to talk, but I'm prepared to make a motion, but I don't want to make a motion until I hear the others talk.
I'm ready to put this together. I can have it Monday. If somebody gives me some guidance and tells me what you want to do.
But how are we going to fund it, I guess, is the question.
That's the whole issue.
And I think that's what the mayor's asking
But as
is,
far as the fire truck resolution, it could be ready Monday.
You know,
So-
it was 2 months ago, we discussed this in purchasing.
right?
And I asked Catherine then, and she said these same guidelines, and I brought it up during the meeting, but it was, shot down because we're gonna do it this way. Well, that's fine with me, as long as we get fire trucks, that's the main goal. But we have to go by state, so we don't have a big finding. So I guess what the mayor is asking tonight, and more than likely, Pierce is probably gonna be the best deal, is that by law, we have to go ahead, and if somebody make a motion, go ahead and do this. Catherine can have it done in just a few days, the way I understand it, right?
It's usually
Pretty quick.
10.
10 days. Okay. But we, as a committee, could go ahead and issue that tonight and get the ball rolling tomorrow. Is that correct, Mayor? Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's good information. Did any of the other commissioners have anything to
No,
add?
Chief's got something.
I have one more thing to add on that. Mr. Bailey, correct me if I'm wrong on this. The numbers I presented to you from Pierce, last month maybe, those will no longer, those are Sourcewell numbers. Once this goes to bid, you can add a certain amount of money back onto that. That 1.8, almost $1.9 million in savings that I told you about, that will still be substantial savings, but once it goes to bid, those numbers go away. And also, you have to understand, you're having to bid not just 1, 2, or 3, you're having to bid 11 individual trucks. So that means that each department would have to spec their truck exactly the way they want it, and that is going to have to go to bid, just like when we've done it before with the current resolution, every couple years a department's getting a truck. That's how that will have to work for these 11 trucks on this bulk purchase, because the way this bulk purchase was done through Sourcewell, and I don't understand all that, so if you all say there's a problem with it, there's a problem with it, sure. But I know other counties, other cities use it, and it's not a problem on audit funding, so I don't know. But that's what you guys are for. So, but I wanted to make sure you guys were aware that those numbers that we presented, those go away. Those are no longer existent. I don't know how much it would probably add, 40,000 back onto each particular truck-ish, maybe.
You have to come forward.
And if you all remember, this is Jim Bell with Pierce.
And I'll speak as a knowledgeable person of the fire, and not in an Anderson County taxpayer instead of a Pierce person. Okay, I can't speak to the legal side. We have Knox County, I can do bulk purchases. We have tons of bulk purchases on Sourcewell. I've never had any issue whatsoever, so I don't quite understand that. But the problem with the bid process, and even if it's not Pierce, I would tell you, even if you weren't buying Pierce, don't do it through the bid process. You're going to pay more for the truck. So if it's saving taxpayers' dollars to get the same truck, then don't go through, don't buy it from Pierce, buy it from my competitor.
Tell us how to get around state law that requires us to bid.
Again, I'm not a lawyer, thank goodness. I'm James Bell, but not that James Bell. So the Tennessee code's real clear. We keep stuff for auditing. We've been audited. The counties we deal with that buy bulk purchases have been audited, and it's never been an issue.
I don't think the bulk purchase is the issue.
I mean, without bidding, because Sourcewell or HGAC or.
Well, it could be piggybacking off of a bid that has been competitively bid. That's an option.
But now, I can only speak, again, to the non-legal side. We have never had any issue because the state of Tennessee has always looked at Sourcewell, HGAC, NPGov, whoever that person uses, as they're already bid, you've already submitted the pricing. So
Off the state contract.
No, off of our contract with Source, I can't speak to a state contract.
You can buy off a state contract, but,
I don't.
off of a piggyback that's been competitively bid.
Well, the NPGov, just like the city of Clinton, they bought every apparatus from us through, I think now you used NPGov. And that's fine too.
That's a collaborative purchasing agreement.
Well, so's Sourcewell.
Yeah, exactly.
And so's HGAC, so.
Look, as soon as our auditors say there's no problem with it, and our auditors is the state of Tennessee comptroller, we don't hire outside
No,
auditors, then, hey, we're good with it. But that's our problem right now, and I'm being straight up with you.
Oh, and that's, I
is
understand that,
we
and I
have
can't
an
answer that.
audit. We wanna make this work, I promise you that, but we also don't wanna have an audit finding. And whatever it takes to make it work, we're gonna do something. But it's probably gonna end up having to be bid, as long as our auditors are telling us that they've got a problem with these, base discounts off of manufacturer's suggested retail price.
Well, the other thing too, you gotta realize, in the fire truck world, just like you were saying, like, I gave a list, somebody from procurement called me, or asked for a request from me. I gave a list of what our MSRP prices are for every single option in one of the trucks that we're proposing. So your procurement department has that. Now, if I gave you the standard discount off the Sourcewell, off of that MSRP, it's more than I'm charging you for the truck. So you're, because I'm doing a larger group deal, I'm adding Sourcewell, so that's part of your discount. But you've got the MSRPs, and you've got the exact MSRPs there. So, that Pierce has, now I can't speak to other manufacturers.
Our problem at the purchasing department, finance department, with the comptroller is there's no way to determine what that manufacturer's suggested retail price is.
Well, I can't speak for other manufacturers, but we provide ours for line item by line item for that, for example, that truck, so we can, I send it over, this is every single line item MSRP. But anyway, if any more questions, I'm sorry.
No, I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Just real quickly, too, just to reaffirm and answer for Commissioner Wandell, no, there was no decision ever made. So for instance, if we're talking right now, we're talking, the number has grown. So we're talking 11 vehicle purchases times whatever that number is, 345. There's definitely nothing that's gone through finance or budget that has said, yep, we're in for $4 million and we're gonna write the check. So, I mean, it's been a discussion in progress, and then what happened is Mr. Bell pulled the trigger on, we gotta do this. We have to do this, and we can do it. We'll hold it, and then, yes, we can hold it till January 14th, and then Commissioner Meredith said, well, can you do it to the third Monday in January? And he said, yeah, I think we can do that. So that's where but we've been working on it, but no one has said, yeah, we're going to write a check, or we're going to borrow half. Those were all things that we were still in the process of discussing. But there is a will to get some kind of savings, and it's been a work in progress. And to Jay's point on the prior issue, we've had this issue with Chromebooks. And so, for instance, the schools, in order to address some of the issues where they're following the law, but the auditor said, we need to see it done this way, so they're just going to go out to bid every time they do a big purchase of Chromebooks. And it's a transparency issue. It's not us, it's not me, it's not, I mean, there's nothing there other than those are the concerns, so.
Mr. Yeager?
I do not have a question.
Well, with that said, Mr. Chairman, I believe I'll make a motion to move forward with the resolution. Once approved by the law director with any changes or modifications, I'll make a motion to move the draft forward for the bulk purchase of 11 fire trucks. That's my motion.
Commissioner Wanda, you want this money now?
I mean,
You want it, I'll get it
Well, I mean, I think people need to have the ability to have input. I can imagine that there may be some commissioners that will say, I didn't have a chance to read it, and I don't know. I mean, if you can get it Monday, you can. And the reason I'm being a little bit coy, I guess you could say, is I'm going to be out of town Monday, so I don't want to look like I'm somebody asking for something and not show up. So I'm in support of bulk purchase of 11 fire trucks for our volunteer fire departments and municipalities. I think it makes sense from a financial standpoint. I think it makes sense to evaluate the ARP money to use if we can. I know we're not at that point to pull the trigger on it. The funding can happen at any time. You know, I don't have a problem with it going to bids. If that's what it has to do, then it goes to bids. But if we could save $2 million or $1.8 million, I'm interested in that too. If legally we can do it, if we can't legally do it, then we can't legally do it. I understand that. So yes, my motion is to move the bulk purchase of fire trucks forward with the law director and the mayor's approval. And then if it's able to be voted on Monday, that's great. I'm a yes. I won't be here, but I'm a yes.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Can we get another motion to start the bid process?
That's what I was
This is
fishing
all
for.
contingent upon funding.
That's what I was fishing for earlier.
Well, I mean, I can make that motion, but I don't know where the funding's gonna come from. I guess maybe that's what you're asking is, because if the funds can come from the ARP funds, I'd like to use those funds instead of using the so-called taxpayers' dollars.
So wouldn't it go back to budget?
Well, everything would have to go through budget.
That's what I'm saying. Simply make a
We'll start the bidding process and it's contingent upon funding.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we have purchasing or budget send out, it'd be purchasing, wouldn't it? Have purchasing put out an RFP for the bulk purchase of 11 fire trucks.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Just a reminder, this is advisory committee to county commission. To start the bidding process actually has to have a motion from county commission. Catherine will want to see that. So that may not, I can tell her it's en route and she can start her process, but she's not going to be able to officially put that on the street until she gets county commission approval on it. But at the same time, if she's going to start this, we need to remember this needs to be put on the budget committee, financing, and start that process also.
I would go out on a limb and say that this would pass. Get it in the,
That's why I'm
send the
looking at
RPs
Dawn,
out
but-
so you could, let her know so she could go ahead and do
No, it's
the
coming.
in-house stuff. Yeah.
She won't put it out officially until she gets county commission approval.
Now, a question I just have, Mr. Chairman, if it,
Vote on that last.
Yeah, we just did.
Okay.
if for some reason that the mayor and the law director and the finance budget committees find out they could purchase the trucks directly, I mean, is that something we could still do, or is this motion knock that in the head?
No, we can still look at that, but we're still looking at a contingency on all those issues of funding. That's why I think the mayor wanted to go ahead and get something rolling tonight, and you've accomplished that. I'll ask Catherine and Robbie to talk to the auditors about it. Is there any way that we can get this through? Is it something they're just saying, no, we want to see it bid, but
Well-
either way you're covered here, we'll start. I'll have this,
It'll be done correctly, period.
yeah, that's it. We'll have the resolution ready for you Monday, and Catherine, I'll notify her that it's coming her way on the bid, and she can start drafting her bid on this, and, but just remember, funding is the next issue.
And the ARP funds, Mr. Chairman, the total we have,
We have currently just over 7, and we'll get another 7 or so. How long will that second 7?
I think it's 1 year from now.
Okay.
And then the guidance isn't final, so right now, there does have to be some kind of, it's explicit that you can use it for water, sewer, broadband. But anything else, it has to have a COVID component. So, so that's something that we can look at. I know Commissioner Yeager, as the finance chairman, is talking about a workshop. I think you threw out around some dates, the 10th or 11th.
of January.
Yeah. So, we can do some outreach on it and see.
I think Robbie's team was getting all the guidelines and stuff, and like right now, like she was saying, is if you want to use that money, you got to send in a request and see if it goes along with that. But the way I understand it, they're trying to address all these things, and it'll change throughout the process, and it may be even extended another year.
Okay, thank you.
We're probably using our own money is what it probably comes down to, so that's the way I think we should look at it.
From what I read, is they're trying to make it explicit that it's for infrastructure, so we don't mess up like we did several years ago when we put all this money aside for infrastructure, not the county, but national, and it didn't go to infrastructure. So I think that's what they're trying to do now to make sure that that's how it works. Okay. Anything else?
Mayor, just a quick question, and not trying to put you on the spot, but there was calls that went out to the volunteer fire departments, I guess, from your office, wanting to know how many people were in each department. I was just curious what that might have been about.
Well, I was actually, this was one of my midnight kind of inspirations. So that was a few weeks ago. We actually reached out to all the municipalities as well as EMS. And I love doing community things. So my idea was to try to do something where we could just line up all of the agencies, get the community to come together, do like a ham and something, and just say Merry Christmas for nothing.
So for first responders?
Yes. So it's around 700. So
pretty big number.
I was like, Leanne, I think I'm going to have to make that next year's or maybe on an appreciation day or February. And of course, this wouldn't be me, but I'd be organizing, I'd pitch in financially, but then I know this community loves our first responders. So sometimes just a dedicated thank you in an organized way, a big way, and just to see everybody kind of coming through a line would have.
Would that include the sheriff's office and stuff too?
We did, yes.
Yeah.
Police, I mean, we called Oak Ridge Fire, Leanne did all of that.
Okay.
So, and then also reached out to all the volunteer agencies, our EMS folks. And we were
Well-
even including jail staff.
And we don't have to, I mean, if it goes past Christmas, I mean, we can still do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the idea.
Yep.
And I think it's great, and I support it in any way I could, Mr. Chairman. Thank
I
you
think
for
that's why
answering.
they call her the people's mayor.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, our volunteer fire departments are so important to our rural communities. We spoke on this several times, and even back when, it was increasing the funding several years ago. But this is one of the things that the people in the rural communities, it is so important, mainly because of first responders, because we have more first responder calls. I'm sure, everybody that's affiliated knows that. And it is really an important issue, and it's something that we're addressing, and we're going to stay on top of it. Okay. The possibility of the inclusion of North Rocky Top Dispatch has been postponed. We didn't talk about that in intergovernmental until January, so that'll come up next month. Then the next is upkeep of community cemeteries. And the sheriff's here, and especially in District 4, like Wilson Cemetery, and I'll try to clean it myself. And in the summertime, you can clean it 1 week, 2 weeks later, it looks like it's not been touched. So the sheriff's department with their inmate program has done a great job in trying to keep up these cemeteries. Now, we're not always gonna be commissioners, and we're not always gonna be the mayor, gonna be the sheriff. But what I'd like to do is put a resolution forward, is that through the sheriff's department and the inmate program, that we always take care of these, because some of these graveyards or these grave sites have been sitting for decades without being touched until Sheriff Barker and his program come along to do that. And there's people still being buried. You know, you have to go up there and mow out an area, you know, for them to be buried in. But I would like to try to put forward a resolution that after we're gone, this program is still gonna go on.
I'd support that.
How many are there? Any estimate?
Oh,
Ms. Vickers had them all inventoried. It's a real touchy issue though legally. We run into this before. There's got to be public cemeteries, but not operated privately.
right.
And that's,
I think the sheriff's got a list actually, because Captain Val, they went out and I know that there's been like 4 that right in the Rocky Top area. I mean, there's some up there that you
there's no
wouldn't even
doubt
know
they
was
do a great
there.
job.
Yeah.
We just want to do it within the law.
And there's so many coal miners that's buried there. And every one of these public cemeteries we're talking about is people that had died in the coal mining disaster.
Oh, there's some buried in the backyards of folks. I've
Yeah.
been in one house, it's got like 6 or 8 buried in the backyard.
Yep. So, you know, I would like for somebody to make a motion that we do some type of resolution supporting this going forward. Make sure it's always taken care of.
Don't you think that's up to the sheriff, though? I mean,
Well, I spoke with the captain about it.
But what I'm saying is it's his department and
Yeah.
his program, therefore it should be up to the sheriff to,
So,
That's why he's here.
yeah, among other things. So I'm good with us doing that. The only issue that I want to do is I've never thought about what Jay said, that there's some kind of law that may prohibit it or make it an issue. If Jay gives us a green light, or if we need to take it on a case-by-case basis, it's something that we've done as people have reached out. For example, there's one in Hunter's Trail that actually runs up against the backyard of Chief Becker's house. And it's got Civil War people buried in it. And some Cub Scouts came out or Boy Scouts for one. Some group came out and cleaned it up, but honestly, it stays in such disarray you wouldn't even know it was back there, to be quite honest with you. And that's a little shameful, particularly with it being something that historic.
Mm-hmm.
So we're for it, and from the sense of having the inmates do the work. They enjoy getting out and doing that. Gives them some sort of sense of accomplishment, as little as it may be. But and we don't mind to do it. However, we want to make sure that we're doing it legally and doing it properly. And also, I want to, I want to make sure that we're not overloading our wagon for the most part, because there's other groups too that we try from time to time to go assist and help. And we really, and so we really don't have the, we have a mowing crew that we send out that handles certain parks and stuff, but majority of it is, like I know, for example, the Boys and Girls Club of Oak Ridge, we helped them one time and they kind of got behind. So we won't be doing those as well. But I'm all for it, to be honest with you, and I don't, unless there's some legal reason we shouldn't be. So I guess I say that to say this. I would think that we maybe revisit it after Jay researches it, or Jay, if you have an opinion, shooting from the hip.
If this is okay, can I have it ready in January? I need
Sure.
to put some work on this one. There's some parameters within the law. There's been issues with it before. Not here, not in our county. And it's a fantastic project. I'm all for it. We just got to, we got to closely select. It's going to be on an individual basis.
Sure.
And we probably need to get with Ms. Harris, and find out exactly which ones she's determined to be private and which ones to be determined as public but not privately operated. And there's differences there. So I'll be glad to work on this. And I would actually prefer having a resolution resolution, I think the sheriff would, everybody would, that says, look, if you meet these criteria, then we can help you with maintenance of these cemeteries, but just give me to January on it, please.
That's fine.
Well, unfortunately, we were wanting to wrap that up under the Christmas tree for Shane.
Go ahead and give it to him.
Tell him what's come, back order, tell him COVID, it's on a ship in the bay. Yeah. Yeah, but we're for it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Senior Center Sea Cadets.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senior Center has come a long ways. It's really nice. Had the opportunity to go over there for Thanksgiving, and it was really enjoyable. I know the sheriff and mayor and many others were there, elected officials, department heads. I just sat down and ate. I didn't serve like I probably should have. Maybe next year I'll serve instead of eating. But I went back into where the kitchen area is, and I noticed there's a lot of Sea Cadet uniforms, and it's become a storage area, and nobody's really complaining, but I guess my question is, it seemed like when we passed this resolution to allow the Sea Cadets, my thought was they would be using the Daniel Arthur facility.
That's what I thought.
And I don't know why all of a sudden we've ended up with them at the senior center. And, you know, they apparently stay the night there on Fridays and Saturdays sometimes. And, you know, that concerns me because, you know, I don't know who's responsible on our property with these young men and women there at nights. I don't know, but I guess what I'm saying is the seniors would never say anything, I don't think, or ask questions, but you know, the facilities are being used, you know, they're on a limited budget as it is. They're, you know, toilet paper, all the little fun stuff that goes along with maintaining the building. So I guess my question is there any way we can reevaluate that and maybe have the Sea Cadets meet at the Daniel Arthur building and we open up to seniors so they can get that kitchen in order? And I know the mayor's got a grant that was handed to us to get that going. So I just wanted to have some discussion about it.
Appreciate you.
I haven't been in there since the Sea Cadets have gone, but I have seen some photos, and it was really very disturbing to me because they were going to use it with such pride. They were going to put up their banners, and they were going to do all sorts of help and, you know, little upkeep on weekends and things like that. And I don't know if those things are happening, but the pictures I've seen have not really shown any real respect for the building that I was expecting to see.
There was discussion about using DARC, but Commission did authorize the senior center. So I think it kind of went back and forth on two separate meeting months, or maybe it jumped over 1 month. I don't recall, but that is the authorization that did happen. The original intent was for one of those storage facilities that are out back to be the Sea Cadet storage area for the uniforms. And what happened with that is a lot of the materials during the construction were being stored in those, so we did not have those. Then one of them turned into the ACRF does a pet food program for the seniors, and they needed permanent long-term storage to gather that food during the month. And then they have their regular giveaways for seniors in need. And so the storage building was not available. And that's how, this is a temporary while there is no actual kitchen. But with that said, I have spoken to the folks with the Sea Cadets. I guess maybe 30, time flies, could be 45, 60 days ago. And they're in agreement because we had an incident, for instance, where the cadets were up early in the morning doing drills, where some might say, that's awesome, we got young people doing drills running down the street at 7 a.m. Others were like, I'm sleeping in on a Sunday. And so with that in mind, I have spoken to them, and we are actively looking for somewhere else that would be a better fit, where they could have their permanent materials, because it really isn't the fit that we thought it was.
Okay.
They don't use it. I think they used it a little bit more often in the summer. I think they went 3 months without needing it. We do have something set up where they'll notify us because we've got the alarm system. They used it maybe a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it's been 3 weeks. I don't know. But we are looking for some other, and if you all be on the lookout, I just don't know that the DARC would be the appropriate facility with all of the courts and other things in the other wing. I think I have to go back and watch the commission meeting and remind myself of what the discussion was here on why it wasn't the best option. We can do that, absolutely. You've got the gymnasium in there.
Yeah, because I think I mean, from my understanding, they come in on a Friday evening.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're out of there by Sunday afternoon, so I don't think it would be a problem with the courts. I don't even think they're open on those days, except Friday late. I would like for us to look at that. I'd like, you know, I don't know if you need a motion from us to assist, but, you know, I'd like to make a motion that we have the Sea Cadets locate at the DRAC building, if that's okay. That's my motion.
I'll second that motion. Like I went back to the other thing, the way they've taken care of that facility is very disappointing. And I don't know, even though I seconded it, I'm not sure I want them in our facility, to be honest. But we'll discuss it at full commission, but really been a disappointment to me.
Mr. Chairman, I will say this. Maybe if they have somewhat of their own space, they would, you know, because as the mayor pointed out, they're probably were in a storage unit, then they got moved over inside the building into this little area, and it probably would be difficult to get a lot of sense of ownership. But we have space at Daniel Arthur that's not being used, and I suspect the Sea Cadets will get in there and see it as a space they can use at no charge to grow and learn. I mean, all of us are for our veterans. I mean, this isn't about, and I know you didn't mean in this way, but you do have expectations just like I do. If you're a Sea Cadet, it seems to me you would be, those uniforms have been stacked, put away properly, and all these other fun things they teach you in the military. But again, they are in transit at that location. So I like the idea of going to the Daniel Arthur building. I'd be happy to meet with them over there, mayor, whoever, and you know, if they go in the gym, that's good with me. But I think it would help the seniors out, and I think it will help the Sea Cadets out as well.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any other discussion?
Yeah, and I'm fine with them going over to the Daniel Arthur building, but can there not be some sort of restrictions on sleepovers?
You all can do, yes, I mean,
just make it during daytime hours that they're allowed to come and go. I mean, I can understand that they may have equipment to pick up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but they don't need to be in there at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. I heard that they stay overnight, and, you know, I think there's chaperones there that separate them, of course, but, you know, I don't know what that process is for Sea Cadets.
I understand they march at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in the regular military.
The Daniel Arthur building wouldn't have any issues over there.
Right.
And I believe they probably spend the night because they come from a number of counties.
That's
probably
correct.
why.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it's a long drive.
Yeah.
To go back and forth, otherwise they can't make it.
Yeah.
I say we give them an opportunity and see how it goes. I mean, they've been making it work at the senior center, just, you know, with a few hiccups, but I think this will work better at the Daniel Arthur building and for everyone.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Claxton School Zone updates.
I got an email, Mr. Chairman, from Dr. Parrott, said that the lights are on order. So waiting on that. And I did stop one morning. I know County Sheriff's Department had a gentleman parked in the funeral home there, and I just kind of watched it because it made such an impact. People started slowing down, and you know, the young man had the officer had his speed gun up, and it makes a difference versus just parking a car in the middle of the median and whatever. And I'm not saying that's what's happening, but I appreciate the sheriff and his administration putting a little more effort there. We still have people complaining about coming through too fast, and you know, I guess it's always going to be ongoing, but I have asked the people in our community just to be patient. I feel like the sheriff's office is working on those issues. I've seen people getting tickets, which I think once we get these lights put in, and I'm hopeful we can get them in, maybe the mayor can check, but Mayor, I don't know if there's an ability for us to put some school zone lights up on the lights. You know, I don't know if there's a way we can do that to have them time in with the school zone, to where when people come to the red light, they see it in all four directions, that, you know, this is the school zone, and they're flashing, just, you know, because somebody might pull into Weigel's and then they pull back out and, well, I didn't see the light, you know, I forgot about it because I didn't see it. And I think that's kind of some of the stuff that goes on. But for whatever reason, there's a lot of comments about the Claxton school zone, and people feel unsafe, they say.
Yeah, so that is, for school zones, hands down our number one area that we get for complaints for school zones. And it's kind of twofold. One, Claxton is a really large school. They have a lot of students, there's a lot of traffic, and it sits right on the cusp, or right on 25W there. So we make it a priority. However, at the end of the day, we just don't have enough coverage, okay? We have 17 schools on 15 campuses, and on our absolute best day, we have 8 patrolmen, okay? Now, the SROs who are in those schools have other assignments in the parking lots or in the schools as students are arriving, because that was one of the things that they said, have your SROs run radar out there. Well, they're there for the inside, for the interior of the building and the grounds itself. We have, and this is something that pops up, and trust me, I mean, I drove through that school zone 1,000 times myself over the years, and it is an issue. Part of the problem is, I think signage would definitely help. And as Dr. Parrott has told you, Commissioner Wandell, he's assured us that it's ordered, it's been ordered, supply chain issues or whatever's going on,
Right.
that it's coming. Signage definitely would help. But, you know, I don't know. We're going to have to think outside the box on this one, because one of the things that happens is whether you're coming down Clinton Highway heading to Knoxville or coming into Anderson County, you get that tunnel vision, you're on State Highway,
Right.
And then you wake up and you're in a school zone. So you know, we've talked about all the things, not just our deputies that we have on any given day, but between vacation, sick leave, guard duty, things like that, vacations, it all changes, and our numbers are down. So we've been looking at some things, how we can increase that. And another suggestion that Facebook gave us was asking for help from THP. Now, we're definitely not opposed to that, having THP out there with us, and I've seen that some in the past prior to me taking office. But again, THP has limited resources because generally one trooper is responsible for 3 or 4 counties. And because that's one of the problems we run into with some of our crashes. If it's injuries or it's unfortunately going to look like it may end in a fatality if THP takes those, but they may be coming from Scott County. So when you do that and you look at if you've got one trooper running 3 counties, then how many school zones does he have? And I'm sure everybody would love to have him there. But it's something we're going to continue to work on. I do think the signs will be would be incredibly helpful. And I know you've been a big proponent of updating the signs in all directions. If the schools could do that, I think it would be great.
Yeah.
But then again, there's another component to it. And so it's something we're looking at, and we've briefly kicked around maybe tying some THSO grant money into that to pay overtime. But again, it's like a lot of other things in law enforcement. You displace it, and then once you say, okay, it's under control, it eventually comes back.
Yeah.
So it's really, at the end of the day, and I don't say this any means about trying to come across as being a smart aleck, but the truth of it is it's math, not magic. We just have to kind of pick and choose what we do and do the absolute best we can with the resources we have. But I can assure you that we are looking into some alternative things. And I don't really want to go into it here, but we would like to, we're buying an airplane that's going to be shooting radar from the sky. No, we're not. But,
Yeah.
because I think everybody's been through Nashville and seen those signs, and you wonder if it's true. Yeah. So, but there are things we can do, and I can assure you and the people of Claxton, it's not something that we're missing.
I appreciate it.
And I get it. It is incredibly frustrating because, listen, I live inside the city, and I live on Lead Road, and I mean, we have 6 cops that live right there in that neighborhood, and they fly up and down our street.
Yeah.
And I mean, so we get frustrated. So I get where the citizens are coming from on that. But and we're open to ideas. If anybody has anything they'd like to bounce off of us, please reach out to us, because we don't necessarily have all the answers.
Thank you, Sheriff.
All right, thank you.
You know, Commissioner Wandell, believe it or not, I worked on those pop-up barriers like in Oak Ridge. I've got a design for pop-up speed bump that comes up at a certain time of the day. I guarantee you that slows people down.
Well, it would, but I don't know if the state would let us put it out there.
Oh, well, that's true.
Yeah. But no, I think the new sign, if we can get new signage all the way around, it would make a difference. Because right now, when you come down Raccoon Valley, you just have a standard metal sign that fortunately the highway superintendent, Gary Long, put up for us. But that's it. We don't have any flashing lights there. And no one's going to read that sign the way it sits now. And the other signs are really old. They've been there probably over 30 years, if I had to bet. And they're just, people don't pay attention to them.
No, they don't. They get so used to seeing them.
Yeah. So need something that's going to grab their attention and make them slow down. And, but we'll get there. We'll just keep working on it. And I'll keep encouraging our community to tell each other to slow down. And if they see somebody, maybe get a license tag, and we'll see what we can do.
I tell you what, I've seen in some of the, when I used to travel Kentucky quite a bit, on some of those roads not even paved, people put signs in their yard, and it seems like people pay attention to that.
Yeah.
You may have 10 families in a row that'll put out the signs in the yard.
Because they're lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you, Sheriff.
Yep.
Pine Meadows, Ben's home, Claxton Nut Ridge, you want to do that again? I think we was,
Yeah, I think we're good. I think the mayor's, my emails are acting up, but the mayor can resend that. You don't have to do it right now, Mayor.
I did go back down there, so it was actually 11:43, but
Today?
what happened is I went to hit resend, and then there's a red note that popped up on the top of my Microsoft that says failure to attach, and it had a little number. So I think what happened is I probably need to compress it. I sent it to Jay individually, internally, he got it. I sent it to Margie internally, she got it.
Right.
But probably outside agency, it probably exceeds the limit, so I need
You can try my
Leanne
other
to do
email
that.
if you want. Might be that's,
No, I mean, if none of you all got it, it probably just stopped it at
I
the
got you.
out.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thanks, Mayor. And I'll take a hard copy if you want to, just put it in my box, I'll come get it. So, as far as Ben's mobile home, Pine Meadows goes, you know, I'm still getting people wanting, and I've been telling them that the mayor's working on it, and the zoning law director, everybody's working on it, so, I'd like to see something, the roads are just horrendous there, it's unbelievable, and, it's just, we can't even work on them because they're not county roads. Come to find out, I guess, somebody might own the trailer, somebody might own the property, and then somebody rents the property, so you don't really have any ownership to one full entity, so.
We're going to sue 3 people in one case.
Right.
On one issue.
I have been approached by an individual that'd like to buy Ben's mobile home part, so I don't know if he's interested in selling, but they would like to buy it and fix it all up and make it manageable, I guess you could say, but don't know if the owner would be interested in that, but I have been approached about that, so. But that's all, and I'll stay in touch with the mayor. Mayor, I appreciate all you're doing on it, and Jay, you too, in zoning.
And just to let you know, since how we've had so much discussion, and things turned down, about trailers, trailer parks, because they're coming in under residential, and they could put a trailer in there, or they don't have to, or we're changing that, planning commission. Of course, they have to come to full commission for approval, but the trailer parks will have their own zone. So that's what we're working on.
I like that.
Yeah. All right, any new business? The one thing while we got the sheriff and the mayor here is we saw the disaster that happened in mainly, it's like a 200-mile area, but Mayfield, Kentucky was just completely devastated. So if that happens here, what happens? Who takes over?
EMA, we've got an emergency plan, it's all laid out.
And that's what people's asking me, and that's why I'm, bringing it out so it can be discussed in
We've got a
public.
control room, ready to roll.
All right, and then who responds? The sheriff's department or
All kinds of
everybody?
things.
Volunteer fire department?
It's all hands on deck, but EMA would be the one that would kind of be your point of contact, so to speak.
And that's Steve Payne?
Coordinator. I'm sorry?
Is that Steve Payne or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Bless you.
Any old business?
I know the mayor sent out something, Mr. Chairman, on the new convenience center. Is it coming along pretty good? I haven't even driven by
Yes,
there.
so today, they poured the pad on the attendance shed, so
All right.
Danny was out there this morning, and we're on schedule, everything's going well, no issues encountered, knock on wood, it's all moving according to plan.
Any anticipated start open date?
I've got so much in the files up here, I'll have to
I know
look
it's a
back at the
6 month
contract. No, this is a little quicker than that.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yes,
okay.
yeah. It's
So it
not a
could be
long
in the
contract.
spring maybe or something?
Mhm,
Okay,
yes.
Cool. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else coming before this committee? We'll call it adjourned. Thank you. We got a lot of stuff to